Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here. Welcome back, everybody, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. And it has been a bit of a crazy day. For anyone who didn't see my very short live stream earlier today, I spent 2 hours chasing a Scientology PI that was caught surveilling and recording both of my properties here in Clearwater. Unfortunately, that chasing for 2.5 hours occurred in one direction. So then I had to drive 2.5 hours back, and I just got back. And so I don't know, there's been a lot of crazy stuff happening. And one of the most obvious things that has happened recently is the disappearance of Natalie Webster from YouTube. And I haven't really wanted to say anything about this because, you know, we just don't need to keep losing people like this, you know. But I figured who better to come on and talk about it with me but Natalie Webster herself. Here she is, the one and only Natalie Webster.
Hey, everybody. Oh, it's so great to be doing a video again. We're dipping my toe back in. Yes, I am not missing. I am not being held captive. No.
I thought we were going to have to start a whole new Where is Shelly Miscavige campaign, but where is Natalie Webster?
Where in the world?
For anybody new to the channel, Natalie's channel is A Life After a Cult. And for, I don't know, at least in a year now, it seems like you've been doing a daily recap almost every day of everything in the SPTV verse. And then I think you moved it to weekly for, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3 weeks.
I think, well, it was probably like for 16 months, I did almost daily. Eventually I was like, okay, I got to like take Sundays off. And then I pretty much was doing Monday through Saturday for the most part. And then I started a different job where I'm not working from home. And that pretty much has been the change in my schedule. And while I'm getting up to speed on my new job and trying to find my pace there, I haven't figured out how to work back in videos yet. Because sometimes I end up having to go in on the weekend too. Often when I plan to do a video, something happens and I got to go in. So I'm figuring that out, but I'm still here. I'm still going to be doing Scientology content. Absolutely. I'm just kind of like figuring out that stride. You know, I'm trying not to be a Sea Org member about it.
It's so cool. I mean, we don't have to get into all the details of it, but you had pretty much an awesome job working for one of your closest friends fall right into your lap. And it was, you know, the timing of everything over the last couple of years has been pretty
amazing,
fortuitous, fortunate, lucky, you know, even the fact that you were able to start on YouTube as strong as you did when you did at that time in your life, that allowed you to be able to spend the time that you needed to spend doing what you needed to do during that time.
Absolutely. Yeah. It wasn't long. I mean, you and I, when we first talked in December of 23, and I did that interview with you and we were talking about YouTube and me doing YouTube. And at first I was like, no, I got like a lot on my plate. And, you know, Tony was starting to decline. And I'm so glad I did it anyways. And that was a lot of push was from him. Because my concern was, you know, I'm working full-time plus, and I even had another part-time job and, you know, going and doing YouTube. Because it takes me about 3 hours to do a recap, 3 to 3.5 hours from prep to doing the video and just back-end work. And I remember when I started off, I was doing a recap in the morning and then I would go to work and then come back. I mean, it was just crazy. And so this round, I'm trying to like, you know, get my feet on solid ground, being back at this new job, because that's different for me. I've been hiding in my house for 16, 18 months, and I'm finally re-engaging in my community again, which I realized not long after I got this offer. We were talking about it in Hawaii. I don't know if you remember, I brought up and said, like, I'm just trying to figure out like where, you know, what I want to do. I absolutely love YouTube. I'm completely going to continue. But working from home, as much as I love certain parts of it, the further I got in normalizing my grief process after losing Tony, the more I realized, like, I kind of miss engaging with people, which I never thought I'd really say, because I thought, oh, I love working from home. So I think it's a good thing. And lo and behold, as soon as I realized and I made that decision that, you know what, I think I want to engage, then an opportunity did come up, and that's what I've been working on. But I'm dying to dig into a bunch of content, and it's hard because it's like you and I talk, and I'm like getting caught up on what's going on. I'm, caught up on some videos and stuff, but there's been a lot going on. There's always a lot going on. And hey to everybody in the chat. I see you. Hello. I miss all of you as well. If I don't do a live stream soon, I'll do something pre-recorded. It's just even if I can get home at a decent time, I am just beat.
I'm realizing this is one of those videos where I should not wait to leave all the comments for the end, because then we'll probably deal with some comments and questions as they come along, and better to do them when they're relevant to what we're talking about. Hey, Liz, Gail.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Okay. John Irish says, as long as she didn't rejoin Scientology and open up an org on her island, I am happy for her in life.
Oh, wouldn't that be hilarious? What's funny is there's like no way, even if I wanted to, which I do not, let's just be clear. Yeah, they wouldn't take me, fortunately.
Let's see. Oh yeah. Constance Aaron's back from his SPTV adventures.
Yeah, spy adventures.
Jody White, Aaron, what a terrible way to introduce this. I was almost in tears before you brought Natalie on. I know, it's a skill. Thank you, Jolie. We worked on it. And Linda Lou says, I'm getting my Natalie fix.
Linda Lou.
So let's see. First of all, I mean, I feel like not only have we lost you for the last couple weeks or so, but
we've not lost me. I've just been busy working. I'm still here.
I just mean in our regular YouTube world. But Cheryl's going to be out of town for an extended period of time, and we're not going to have her at our protests for.
That is going to be a big hole.
3 or 4 weeks, so it just feels like everything's falling apart, Natalie.
I'm still here for you, Aaron. We are still here. You could Zoom Cheryl into the protest.
So I'm gonna jump around here a little bit. So you know that one security guard at the Hollywood Guarantee building in Hollywood is basically responsible for everything Streets LA has done for the last 2 years?
Are we talking about Sebastian or the guy?
The guy who basically, even before Sebastian.
Oh, yes.
In the same way, Jose, the security guard at the Flag Land Base, having Officer Garrett Banks come out and trespass me for just sticking my phone up to the Fort Harrison door for 5 seconds and turning around and walking away. Jose is solely responsible for the entire new generation, or there's a word I'm missing here. The entire new version of protesting that's occurring in downtown Clearwater every Friday night now. We never even thought about or desired to move our protest right in front of the Fort Harrison until they decided just to be absolute fools. And so thank you, Jose. Thank you, Officer Banks. We're thinking of getting a cardboard cutout of Officer Banks so that he can be out there protesting with us.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yes. And so anyway, if anyone's watching, they have no idea what I'm talking about. We put up a full-blown Dianetics and Scientology stress test table with the red tablecloth and the e-meter and the L. Ron Hubbard books and the L. Ron Hubbard lectures and actual, we have a funny little SP personality test, but I got a whole batch of real personality tests from Hitzel and her husband who were in town last weekend. And we basically try to get people out of Scientology by luring them and trying to convince them to join our new, cheaper, less abusive cult called the Cult of Costco, or the Kirkland Cult. Anyway, we are having so much fun with it. New people keep coming out every week to protest with us. And I don't know, it's made everything feel much more exciting lately because then we keep coming up with ideas on how to build on it.
Yeah, it's fun watching you guys too. I love going between the streams when I can catch you, and it looks like it's a ton of fun. And I'm glad you took it to their door. I mean, they escalated. They started it.
Oh, let me tell you some funny stuff about this and some ideas that we had. First of all, Thank you, Scientology, for telling Officer Banks that the liquid chalk is extra hard for you to clean up off the sidewalk. We would never have known that if you had not told that to Officer Banks and he had not shared it with us. So he was like, hey, I just want to make sure this isn't paint, is it? This isn't paint. This is just chalk. Are you sure? Because they said it was really, really hard for them to clean up. And we were like, is that so? And so, guys, I've never put together anything like an Amazon wish list before. I am going to create an Amazon wish list, and it's just going to have one item on it, okay? I want as much liquid frickin' chalk as all of you out there can possibly send to me, because we are going to absolutely destroy all of the sidewalks around the entire Fort Harrison Hotel and the Flag Building. And I want the brightest colors, like red, bright yellow, bright red, bright green, bright blue. So thank you, Jose, for telling Officer Banks that it was really, really hard to clean that stuff up. And it's funny because I said to Officer Banks, they've got people out here scrubbing the sidewalks for punishment anyway. It's no big deal. And I think Officer Banks secretly really loves us. I really do.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case. They're probably putting people in lower conditions just so they can go clean up on the sidewalks. That's what they do, right? Hey, we need more free manual labor. Let's assign a bunch of people lower conditions.
That's right. And you know how I've been saying, well, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Have you heard? People keep going, how come you don't have a John Travolta out there yet? How come you don't have a this cardboard cutout or that cardboard cutout? And it's really because I don't want to have to buy more sandbags and poster holders to hold all them up. So here's my strategy, Natalie. And it's hard, right? Because it's in the middle of summer and it's incredibly hot out there, and it's a chore for people to come and join us. But if people knew that we were asking them to come and join this so that they could help us with something very, very specific, I think they would be even more excited to come out. We want people to. So we're going to get a cardboard cutout of John Travolta and Officer Garrett Banks and Pat Harney. And
Pat Harney.
Pat Harney's going to join the party. Okay. And instead of buying new things to hold these things up in the wind, we simply want people to come out and hold them. So you're just gonna be holding Officer Banks. You're just gonna be holding John Travolta. You're gonna be holding Pat Harney. And if people aren't there to hold them, then they won't. The cardboard cutouts won't participate that week. But we want people to come out and help us hold the cardboard cutouts and help us apply as much liquid chalk as possible, since we now know it's extra hard to clean up, but totally legal.
Oh, there you go. That's right. I love that you discovered liquid chalk too. I've never used it before, but as we hear, it's difficult to get to take off. And they show their hand on that, because normally, right, in Scientology, it's like never show your pain points, and the cop ratted them out.
That's right. Yeah, Cheryl says you got to keep it together until I get back. Yes. Oh, and then SP Danny has been missing for the last couple of weeks because he got an injury on his bicycle, but I think he'll be healed up enough to join us this coming Friday. When work slows down for you, got to come down and join us one of these Fridays as well.
I know. I'm shooting for being there in September.
That's right.
But would love to sooner. Yeah.
That's right. We got to make sure
it's our birthday month.
We got to make sure it's a weekend when Jen is here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
September
birthdays.
That's right. Andrew Sullivan says, is there an update on Cheryl's preeminent trespass notice? I think the update is that some preliminary research has been done that tends to indicate that somehow, in Florida at least, you can trespass someone from your property even if they have never trespassed on your property. You're basically issuing a trespass warning. It's sort of a preemptive. I think preemptive is the word you're looking for. A preemptive warning that if you trespass, you will be arrested, as opposed to getting one warning. I don't understand why they haven't issued these preemptive trespass warnings to every single protester out there, though.
Well, they can't just trespass. I mean, you got to be on their property to be trespassed, right?
No, this is what this question is referring to. Officer Banks came out and said, well, they asked me to issue you a trespass warning. And she's like, well, for what property? And he said, the Flag Building. Not even the Fort Harrison, by the way, the other building.
Yeah.
And she goes, I wasn't on their property line. He goes, it doesn't matter. You can get he goes, I'm not saying you were on their property. They're not saying you were on their property. You don't have to be on the property in order to get a trespass warning. And that's what he said. And some research after the fact has sort of proven that is correct.
That's interesting. So you could be sitting at home and get trespassed from flag.
I mean, it sounds like it. It doesn't make any sense. I refuse. Part of me still refuses to believe it, but
yeah, that seems kind of weird.
Okay. Mark Harmon says Friday is the 4th of July. Will you be protesting? 100% we will. The 4th of July isn't even a special holiday in Scientology. So they're still going to have their graduation as normal. We're going to be out there just as normal. We may or may not move the activities closer to the park after our normal. Probably won't, honestly. We'll probably just do our protest for the normal hours and that'll be it. But yes, we're definitely going to be out there. Absolutely.
Cool.
Abigail Siwanat says the Barbara Streisand effect at work. The Clearwater police just cannot get out of their own way.
God, that is so true. They're really showing up in ways that are just like,
Yeah. So check this out. Constance June says chalk mixed with water is way harder to get off than dry chalk. I guess that makes, God, does that make sense to me? It does. So if it's dry, yeah, it's just sitting there as dry. So you hit it with water for the first time and it washes away easily, as opposed to getting caked on when it dries.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, Natalie, it's not just like liquid chalk. It's also in an applicator, like a paint. It's sort of like a paintbrush applicator. So it's really easy to do the big letters without having to spend a ton of time doing it.
Oh, that's fun. So it's not just stands out better. It's actually more efficient too.
It's so much better. Yeah. The bipolar astrophotographer says, Natalie, seeing your face completes YouTube. So happy you're happy and re-engaging in such a beautiful way.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Oh, funny. Just another funny comment. A couple days after the protest. So what is today? So on Sunday. Yeah. So the protest was Friday, Saturday. On Sunday, I get a notice from YouTube that they've changed the, status of my video to 18 and over only. It's basically, they said it was rated R.
I didn't know they could even do that. They just changed it on their own.
It's probably because of all the John Travolta Jamie jokes. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think it could be the like swearing?
The truth is with YouTube, you'd absolutely never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Honestly, it can't be the swearing. I mean, you think they're age gating Joe Rogan's podcast on YouTube because of all the swearing? There's no way.
No, that's true. Well, it's not an even playing field. They seem to change the rules just depending, it's a little like Scientology like that.
Yeah. Daniel Kurz is wondering, does Natalie have any private investigator encounter testimony?
I do have a couple. My first encounter with a private investigator that I was aware of was when I went to Clearwater, went to Tampa to do an interview with the Tampa Bay Times. They took me to my daughter Shelby and I to a hotel, and they had already told me, they said that, they were already being followed by PIs. And when this big guy comes out and just like he says like, hey, or hi, or maybe I said hi. It was probably me. I was with the editor from the Tampa Bay Times, and he had said, he's like, yeah, that's one over there. And he came walking through. And of course, I'm always like, hi.
Wow.
But recently, only not long after I started on YouTube, I was at work, and I think I told you about this, Aaron. There was this car that pulled up, this white Mercedes with mirrored windows you couldn't see in at all, which was odd. Yeah. Right. And that, and where my office is, there's like nobody goes back there, and they went behind the building. So I ran out a back door to go say hi. And I go walking out, boom, the car just takes off. But no one makes the traffic light by my office. So I ran back through the other door with my phone. And when they were at the light, I got a picture of the license plate and stuff. And yeah, pretty positive it was a PI.
Nice. The Tampa Bay Times stuff. So that was back in what, 2009 or earlier?
2010.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were doing a whole series on coerced abortions in the Sea Org. And so Shelby, my daughter, went with me because she was, we refused to end our pregnancy and we had Shelby.
That's
So
right.
it was really cool for her to tell her story.
That's right.
That way.
Fascinating.
Mhm.
Rusty, good to see you. John Travolta told me he keeps driving by and still no cardboard John Travolta. It is going to be amazing when John drives by and we have cardboard John there as well.
Yeah.
Andrew Sullivan, it's going to be so busy because Coachman Park has the fireworks. Downtown will be a parking lot. Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Super Weekend Warriors. What happened after Erica's arrest by Clearwater PD? She did find out that everything's been dropped and nothing's gonna happen. But that's kind of not good enough because they already did what they did. So what I don't know is what is going to be done about it. I don't feel like I heard some things about that, but I don't know exactly. But Erica is not facing any further threat of anything with respect to that. So
That's good.
That is good. Constance June says Scientology has advertised an outdoor party. Uh-oh. Let me turn on my do not disturb. Do you hear that ringing? Or is it just
Nope.
Okay, good. Let me quit. Okay. Scientology has advertised an outdoor party at the Fort Harrison for public on July 4th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., including fireworks, food trucks, live music. That gives them
Food trucks.
That gives them an excuse to blast the music, which fair play.
Yeah.
Fair play, Scientology. Fair play. We'll see how that goes.
What kind of food trucks they're going to have? I always feel like Scientology oversells things. You know what I'm saying?
How is the FH going to have food trucks? Where are those going to be?
It seems like competition.
Literally, where would they go?
Yeah, that's true. They can't put them in the park. They can't. Parking lot?
Like
outdoor party at Fort Harrison.
Street or in a parking lot, right? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, Oak Cove.
Oh, maybe. Or they'll pull right up, maybe. Well, it says it's at the Fort Harrison.
But they can't close the Fort Harrison street.
No, but couldn't it pull right up? Like where people get dropped off and stuff?
Oh,
where
right
you guys
in front
stand?
of the hotel?
Maybe that's why there's going to be food trucks to go where you guys stand.
Hey, easy food for the protesters.
Yeah.
Easy.
I love a
for
food
the
truck.
Protesters.
Yeah.
Janet from another planet. Can they tell you that you cannot use the liquid chalk? Nope. And that was actually Officer Banks' point. He's like, look, as long as it comes off with water, it's totally fine. I'm like, well, the evidence that it comes off with water is that it came off with water. We don't really care how hard they have to scrub. It came off with water. He's like, yeah. He's like, I just want to make sure it wasn't actually paint. I'm like, nope, not paint, but thanks for letting us know. It's really hard to get off. Dave's Deep Dives. Is cardboard John Travolta going to be Battlefield Earth Travolta?
Oh, I bet that would mortify him. He has to know more than anybody how bad a movie Battlefield Earth was. He'd probably be like, take it down. I will give you a cardboard cutout of me like from my Pulp Fiction days, but no Battlefield Earth association.
I'll tell you, one of the most exciting thing that's been exciting, crazy, wild to watch is watching Alan Stanfield finally finish off Scott Hochstetter. we're going to call him Scott because I'm not giving him 1 ounce of promo on my channel. But when Alan Stanfield, who is just a strange fellow. Can we talk about Alan for a bit?
Yeah, I don't know him. I've never had a conversation, never met him. Just seen what I've seen recently on YouTube.
There was a period, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was definitely after the first season of The Aftermath. So what was that, 2016, 2017? I always forget. Where I was like, maybe the problem with this guy is no one pays him any attention. Like, maybe he just feels like no one gives him any time and attention or respect at all. Let me just try to give that to him and see if it makes any difference whatsoever. Because he doesn't seem to be just like a straight up lunatic. He seems to be relatively reasonable in most of the things that he says, in my opinion, right? I swear to God, for about 3 weeks straight, I texted and chatted with Alan regularly like we were buddies. And I'm not saying like, oh, it was all a secret. Like I'm saying we were becoming buddies because we were talking and you sort of become buddies. And I was like, if we can just have a reasonable conversation about the things that, like, I don't know. Why am I being so inarticulate about this? I was like, let me find out what the hell this guy's problem is.
Yeah.
And every time I thought, if I just appealed to him as a normal human being, everything would be fine. I was constantly disappointed, because what I would find is that he has particular conspiracy theory sort of agendas.
Mhm.
And all he's ever trying to do is to get you to slowly follow him down his particular line of agenda, his particular agenda. And the moment you sort of try to talk to him in a reasonable way about how you think that's BS, he's also like, oh, you're an OSA. He's like whenever I would actually try to talk to him like a real person, he'd be like, oh, you're running an OSA op trying to handle me. And I'd be like, I can never really win with you, because the only time you're happy is when I agree with you. And if I don't agree with you, you think I'm being sent in to handle you. And eventually, it's not that Alan's a bad guy. It's not that he's evil. It's not that he's anything. It's not that he's crazy. It's that he's fucking impossible to deal with, because he's not trying to have a conversation with you. He's just trying to get you to agree with him. And that's been my experience, at least. And I realize a lot of people don't even know who the hell we're talking about. And I apologize to all of you for that, but we're going to be talking about it for a little bit here. Alan's basically an ex-Scientologist who was never on staff. He was never in the Sea Org. He worked at a mission. And Alan's entire point is, Scientology isn't as bad as you guys all say it is. That's his whole damn point. Okay? That's his whole point. And I kind of go, okay, Alan, if that was your experience, fine. Who cares? But what Alan does is use his experience, which was only working at a mission, which is the kindest, gentlest, lightest version of Scientology anyone could possibly experience, and use his experience as like a blunt object against everyone else, saying, you guys are haters. You guys exaggerate. You guys are all working on a secret op to prevent the real crimes from being exposed. The problem with Alan is his allegiance to his conspiracy theories, and the fact that all he's really here to do is to try to make all other ex-Scientologists wrong if they make Scientology sound like it was worse than he experienced it. And the thing is, there's literally nothing Alan has to say about his experience in Scientology that anybody could even disagree with. The problem is when he says, and because that was my experience in Scientology, it's not fair that you guys are making it sound so bad. And that's just a real weird message and energy to bring to a bunch of ex-Scientologists who were telling their own stories of their experiences in Scientology, Alan. And it's fine for you to have your opinion and to say your opinion, whatever the hell you want to say your opinion. But what Alan really ends up doing is going from channel to channel to channel, to blog to blog to blog, to person to person to person, just to fucking troll them. And that's why all ex-Scientologists hate Alan Stanfield, because he's a waste of time. And so, Natalie, I don't know about you, but when I first saw Alan pop up onto the scene and convince Scott to pay him attention, some people got all up in arms about it. And I was like, this is the answer.
We're for this relationship.
If anybody will finally drive Scott off of a cliff of destruction, it is Alan Stanfield. And I've been cheerleading. I've been cheerleading it every step of the way, and he has done exactly what I said he was going to do. He has driven Scott right off the cliff into full-blown destruction. And now there's literally not a single ex-Scientologist in the entire community except for Alan Stanfield who supports Scott in any way. And if that tells you you're not a part of the movement, I don't know what does. If that doesn't tell you you're not a part of the movement, I don't know what does.
Yeah. That says a lot. And I think what Alan and I see this sometimes, where not just in the Scientology, former Scientologist world, is people forgetting that we've all had different experiences. My experience doesn't invalidate your experience. Your experience doesn't invalidate my experience.
Yeah.
Not every single person experienced the same thing, and that's okay. I don't know what it is about humans where we, feel that need to defend what happened to us when because somebody else maybe didn't experience that, or the other way. It just seems like such an unhealthy road to go down, because all you end up doing is really arguing about something that it really doesn't matter, because we've all had our own experiences, and
Right. It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't change that. And it's such a waste of time to try and control what somebody else is doing, to try and control their narrative or what's happening. They're
right.
just going to do what they're going to do. And I love that saying, how we do one thing, we do them all. And based on how you described him, that really seems to be the way. And the fact that they're kind of uniting a lot of the former Scientologists, people here who are never in, but all in on ending this cult, just by their existence and what they're saying. It's like, hey, I guess there's an upside that Alan is uniting people who are like, yeah, we can all agree on that, about this guy.
And so it would go something like this. So Aaron, do you agree that there's at least a possibility that Mike Rinder is working on a long con operation run by David Miscavige? I'd be like, no, I don't agree to that. There's no chance of that. He's like, see, you're being brainwashed. You've been handled by OSA. You're in a cult or whatever. He wouldn't actually.
Yeah. And that's a conspiracy theory part of it, because not everybody who disagrees with us is from OSA. Not everybody who says something we don't like is from OSA. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. A troll is a troll, whether it's somebody coming from Scientology or not. Are you taking like everything apart? What are you doing?
I'm trying to plug in my keyboard because it's giving me one of those battery getting low notifications.
Oh.
So check it out. So he'd be like, you have to at least, because I would say to him, look, the absolute best OSA operative and plant would, of course, be the one you think would be impossible or the least possible. Just like when the Russians had the head of the CIA counter-espionage division was a secret KGB agent. The Russians had planted that agent. Like, however, was it Aldrich Ames? It's like, it's one of those things where you're like, sure, if Aldrich Ames could have been a KGB agent, then sure, Mike could be working for David Miscavige. And also a comet could wipe out life on Earth tomorrow and NASA just hasn't, spotted it yet. Like, forget it. If you want me to just admit that there's a mathematical possibility that Mike Rinder is the greatest David Miscavige OSOP of all time, fine, Alan, I'll admit that. Score to you. How does that change your life or my life in any way? And it'd be like, okay, so then what percentage would you put on it? And I'm like, this is so fucking pointless. Like,
kind of in the weeds.
Unless your point is to eventually convince me completely that Mike Rinder is working for David Miscavige, there's no point having this conversation. And it's not even because I'm like, oh my God, don't say anything about my friend Mike. It's like, this is literally a waste of time. It'd be like, okay, it'd be like, okay, is there any chance, Alan, that your mother is secretly a Scientology operative, just spying on you the entire time? It's like, if you will say yes, then I will say yes to the Mike Rinder question. He's like, well, of course she could be. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, do you walk around worrying about whether your mother is spying on you for Scientology? Like, do you see the point? Like the conversation's pointless, Alan. And this is how like almost every conversation with this guy will go.
Yeah, I don't know him, but I would venture that it might be that way with everything that he talks about. This could be just like a personality trait and just how he is, and to have to argue those things. And if somebody doesn't see your point of view, then they're obviously working for OSA.
Right.
And that is just, and at the end of the day, to your point, it wouldn't even matter. I mean, really, that's why it's like, I don't, I always am like, be aware and stuff and use, have good boundaries, but it really doesn't matter if somebody is working for OSA or not. It just doesn't matter. It's the actions. There's many people not working for Scientology who participate or are doing things that the Office of Special Affairs in Scientology would do, but it doesn't mean that they're working for them. It just means that, that's what they're doing.
There's so much more I want to say on this, but I also want to point out the counterpoint. In my opinion, it is not just Alan that has co-opted Scott with his crazy conspiracy theories. I truly believe Scott is only doing this thing of parading around Alan to very specifically piss off Laura. Scott started interviewing Alan about his ideas about how not all child auditing is really bad. And if all of this abuse was really happening, how come there's not more reports? Scott was only doing this to piss off Laura because Laura broke up with him. It was his final act of trolling. They both are using each other in this amazing marriage of destruction. That is, they're actually like being the final destruction of each other, which I celebrate completely and I wholeheartedly embrace it.
That's what's going to happen. I mean, there's just a track record there.
Yeah.
I would hope that he wouldn't do that just to piss off Laura. But
he totally
you just you never know. There's not, I've caught some bits and pieces of his videos. I've noticed like he's really starting to use Scientology like a Scientologist would
all the time.
Some things he's gotten down. It's almost as if the thing that he has fought and resisted, he's now become, which is sad.
Yeah. How is I'm preaching to the choir and I'm starting to repeat myself, but I love to do that. Imagine trying to continue to pretend like you're part of the ex-Scientology movement when not a single ex-Scientologist supports you in any way. It is so pathetic.
Yeah, it's hard to do. I try to put myself in that point of view to understand like why continue. And the only thing I can think of is just making a living on YouTube, because there's nothing that comes out of arguing and fighting with so many different people. I'm not sure I've seen somebody besides maybe Alan who has gotten into so many beefs with so many people in such a short period of time, where at any point you got to look at any group where that's going on and go, okay, you got to work hard at that. Like you got to work hard at beefing with people and having that much conflict going on.
It's one thing to beef with a lot of people. It's also another thing to just visibly enjoy every moment of it. Visibly.
Yeah.
Unashamedly enjoy every minute of it. And that's actually why I'm not sure that I'll ever truly be able to forgive the people who've supported him until the very, very end, because the guy enjoys creating destruction and havoc in a community he didn't even know about until about a year ago. We've been doing this. We've been living this shit our entire lives. We've been speaking out against Scientology for an awful long time. This piece of shit dirtbag comes along about a year and a half ago and decides to run roughshod through the entire thing. And some people have continued to support him until the bitter end and have only recently decided they don't like him either. Yeah, you're part of the problem too. Yeah, for sure. Shit,
yeah, he's a good example of how we do one thing, we do them all. Remember when he first came around, we all got the emails from people we didn't know claiming he was trouble and that he disrupted other protests and causes. And of course we were like, that's exactly what Scientology would say.
Yeah.
And we were like, well,
yeah,
again, we don't control what's going on. People come, people go, people protest, people don't.
Yeah. I just realized I want to bring up some of the more recent comments that are relevant to what we're talking about. Marilyn Honig, lurking, but wanted to say hi. Good to see you, Marilyn. C.O. Bilf, didn't Alan Stanfield do some apologetics for Nexium, or am I imagining that? Oh, I don't watch anything he ever does, so I wouldn't even know. Constance June, those two, I mean, obviously I've been watching some of the stuff he's been doing recently, but in general, those two, Alan and the other guy, are just exposing each other. They are, and exposing themselves to each other, probably. Did I say that? The Journey 2020, when Alonzo said the word cult is a slur word, I knew Scientology ideology is still within him. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I missed that one. Cult is a slur word.
Abigail says, hey, I'm so glad to see Natalie and so excited to see you guys together. Natalie, have you been to your P.O. box?
Yes, and thank you so much, Abigail. That was very thoughtful.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that one just because I don't want to get off topic. I'll save it for later, let me see. Oh, Feral Cheryl. I'm anti-Scientology, so I win. Narrative is confusing.
Oh, that's right. Because how he describes himself, right? He was a former Scientologist, then an anti-Scientology person. Now he's anti-Scientology.
Yeah.
It just seems like a lot of work. It's a lot to keep track of. It's
Okay,
just being against so many things.
it's true, right? I forgot to catch these earlier. Scooter Chat Mama, Toronto Audit. I'm just going to call you Toronto Audit from now. Liquid chalk comes in spray cans too. Hint, hint. Oh my God, I'm sure the cops would come out and think we're tagging the place, but
Yeah.
that could be good though. Constance June, correction, 45 North Fort. Oh, the 4th of July party is at the Criminon building. Okay, that's at one of those, those looks like the Disney.
The fake front.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, that's super interesting. I wonder if they can close part of
that street.
There is a possibility they can close just a little part of that street, and that actually doesn't affect us in any way. So
yeah, nobody's on that street.
That's good. Oh, let's see. Carla's loving wife, Natalie. Can you squeeze in an aloha?
Oh, aloha. Here, I got the button too.
Aloha.
I guess I wanted to tackle this because it addresses maybe a couple of the things that that Alan's been saying lately. Absolutely, Jason. Alan's other points are auditing is not bad, and the only evil in Scientology is the Sea Org and upper management.
Oh, I would beg to differ on that.
I know. And so it's funny because in my entire time talking about Scientology on YouTube, I have always said there is, of course, a certain amount of the lower levels, the non-confidential levels that many people find helpful for this reason or that reason. If there was nothing attractive or helpful about these things, nobody would ever get sucked up into them, guys. It's like
and the basic stuff, some of the basic things that people find helpful, I found that are actually other places, or they're natural universal truths, like gravity exists, whether you believe in it or not. But leave it to L. Ron Hubbard to, he didn't do this, but it's the type of thing he does. Come up with a system for proving that gravity exists and then charge money for it.
And the only evil in Scientology is the Sea Org. It's just like the stupidest thing you could possibly say. Even if it's his opinion, it's like, fine, that's your opinion. I don't give a shit. Good for you.
Yeah, no.
It's a stupid statement. It's stupid.
No, I mean, there's, as we said earlier, not everybody had the same experience, but there's even myself as a teenage staff member outside of the Sea Org, before I ever went to a Sea Org base, experienced things as a staff member and a, kid in Scientology that were abusive and not okay. And that wasn't the Sea Org.
Now, here's what's interesting to consider, though. If Alan was working at a mission in the 80s, mind you.
Yeah.
Okay. Back then, there was a much bigger delta between the Sea Org experience and the staff experience and the mission experience.
Oh, yeah.
These days, the missions largely don't even exist. There's a handful of them for sure. And even now they're opening up like ideal missions here and there. But the similarity between the mission experience and the org experience, the staff experience and the Sea Org experience is so much closer today than it's ever been. So because of all the training programs and all the training evolutions and the tech training evolutions and the admin training evolutions, those Scientology staff members get sent back to their orgs with Sea Org practices. Sea Org ethics, justice, tech, and admin practices. And I'm sorry, Alan, that Scientology today doesn't resemble Scientology of the 1980s. But the people who are speaking out today are the people who, by and large, have experience with Scientology today.
Yeah. I think what would be a more accurate statement is if he said, his experience is his experience.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that was everyone's experience. It seems he's dead set on changing the minds of other people that was the experience, or this is the way that it is. And that's where I think it's important, even when we share our stories, it's like, that was my experience, your experience, this person's experience, or we saw it happening to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I guess since I just mentioned the missions, we can at least bring this one up. Tony Ortega had a headline about ideal missions. I thought I thought ideal only applied to orgs. Can you explain? So the only reason it seems like ideal only applied to orgs is because it's supposed to be the only strategy that's relevant in Scientology to release OT 9 and 10 is the ideal org strategy. The fact that Miscavige is now extending this to ideal missions when half of the orgs in the world have not finished their ideal org program is just another stupid game of making it look like all sectors of Scientology are expanding. But to explain this to you, you said, I thought the word ideal only applied to orgs. The way David Miscavige is using the word ideal in ideal org really just means brand new, giant, renovated building. Full stop, end of story. That's all it means.
Yeah.
And so an ideal mission just means exactly that. Brand new, much bigger, renovated building.
Exactly.
End of story. There's nothing else changes. Zero.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And like you said, it's probably gotten worse because you're right. Staff do leave. I mean, look what happened to Aaron Cairo when he went and trained under David Miscavige at Flag for a couple of years, how he came back, how he started to run his business into the ground, the tactics that he used, that came right out of Flag.
That's right. And these people that finish these training evolutions in Clearwater, Florida, and I'm speaking from experience, they leave those training evolutions, they go back to their orgs with the single belief that your allegiance to David Miscavige is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And the truth is, your allegiance to David Miscavige is also the only thing that will save your butt. And I speak from a experience on that as well. So it really is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And
which is so culty. Like that's completely what a cult is. Your allegiance to the leader determines everything. You have to stay in good standing on the good side of the leader.
That's right. And the truth is, when I was in the Sea Org, for my organization, I had an executive post, but in the Sea Org, I didn't have a particularly high post at all. And yet people did not fuck with me because David Miscavige's representatives had my back.
Yeah.
Because they knew I rolled with David Miscavige. They knew that because they knew me from Flag. They knew me from that training evolution. And when I first got to L. Ron Hubbard Way and I saw what was happening in my org by the people who were supposed to be implementing the golden age of tech, and I saw that it was not up to the standards David Miscavige had trained us all in.
I bet you wrote a bunch of knowledge reports like a little bitch.
I threw them all under the bus like the little motherfuckers they were. And it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal. RTC ordered massive retraining and redrilling evolutions on all the tech staff on the entire base.
Thanks to Asmithlevin knowledge report.
This guy.
This is not keeping Scientology working. This is non-standard squirrel.
And so that breed of staff member now thinks that David Miscavige does represent the epitome of standard tech and LRH and keeping Scientology working. And I honestly think that's why Miscavige keeps doing these training evolutions, is just to keep making sure that the newest, freshest generation of staff members are loyal to him and no one else. And they run those orgs practically like they're Sea Org orgs. And I'm sorry that wasn't your experience at your local fucking mission in the Midwest that nobody went to, Alan. I'm sorry that you hear our stories and you're like, that wasn't my experience, so they're not being fair. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. And it goes both ways, there's at the same time, it's like, okay, his experience was his experience. But I think that's the difference in approaching it. Like that's fine. I still don't understand that need to convince other people that your experience was their experience.
Well, that's right. And no one's ever told Alan his experience was wrong.
Yeah.
And now, of course, people take issue when he's like, well, not all auditing is bad. Okay, but not all auditing is bad. Like, and that doesn't mean you should go and join Scientology. And it doesn't mean you should go get auditing. But saying all auditing is always bad is kind of equally a stupid thing to say. It's like, there's a reason why Dianetics boomed in the 1950s. A lot of people found it helpful to them. That was back when it was just Dianetics and it wasn't Scientology. I still would never recommend someone to go do Dianetics because it's pseudoscience.
Yeah. And there's not a lot and it could be like, I'm still, cause I'm so turned off to it, but I don't feel like there's any good auditing. It's just all is, and you know, even with Dianetics, I didn't do a ton of Dianetics auditing, you know, actual locate an incident, run through it kind of thing. But I think because I did a lot of it as a kid, because they would always use us kids for practice. When somebody was doing a course and they had to deliver that auditing step, it was like, you know, we'd get grabbed and getting all kinds of random auditing actions done on us because someone needed to practice.
Yeah. It's funny feeling like I end up in a position of sounding like I'm defending something I don't like, don't believe in, and don't care about. But imagine walking up to someone who's like, I tried taking these new vitamins and they really help me. And then someone comes along and goes, no, they don't. You could have gotten help by taking something else instead. How do you know it wasn't the placebo effect? And it's like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Who cares? If someone says
Let them have it.
Help them a little bit, who cares? Anyway, so what's my point? Like,
yeah, I have a friend like that. I have a friend of mine who's a former Scientologist.
Yeah.
And, you know, even like asked for and got a refund. So she's totally declared, but she still says, you know, the auditing that she did, she has wins from. And when we get together, we go to brunch and she might bring that up. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm happy for you. And it doesn't change. I don't feel the need to go, well, let me tell you about my experience. You know, they're not all the same. And it's right. That way with everything, even outside of Scientology. That's how you can find a partner and you're madly in love with them and they're like your soulmate, but they have an ex who thinks they're a total loser.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It kind of goes both ways on this because, whereas I've seen Alan take issue with overgeneralized absolutist statements like auditing is never helpful ever. I've seen him take issue with those statements, which I would take issue with those statements as well. I've also seen other people, you know who I'm talking about, criticize Alan for saying any auditing was ever helpful. And she's like, no, it's not. No, auditing is never helpful to anyone for any reason. And how dare you say that? I'm sorry, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, some people do say, even former Scientologists.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't take anything away from my experience. My experience takes nothing away from theirs. If they got something out of auditing, good for you. At least you got something for that money.
Yeah. You've heard me say, and it's totally true, can't remember a single auditing session I ever went into that I was a willing participant of from the beginning. I hated auditing. I had anxiety anytime I knew I was going to have to get auditing. And yet I will still tell you, there were plenty of auditing sessions I legitimately felt better at the end of. Oh my God, am I promoting Scientology? Like, who the fuck is out here telling ex-Scientologists what they're allowed to say about their own experience? How stupid do you have to be to think that you can tell other people how they're allowed to talk about their own experience?
Yeah. And it needs to be, from my point of view, especially when we talk to people who are former members, that, you know, we try to meet them where they're at, not overwhelm them with our own stuff. You know, it's like their experience was theirs. I agree.
It's like, oh my God. There's you know, I don't know, people who have nominated themselves the tone police, the content police, you know, the police officers of ex-Scientologists on YouTube on what you're allowed to say or not to say without being called out for saying the wrong things. Now, I'm sure there's people that are going to go, but you and Jenna are telling Tom DeVocht what he's supposed to say. No, we're not. Tom DeVocht can say whatever he wants to say. We're saying, could you also talk about the things that occurred at the Flag Land Base that you were in charge of? Because we think that would also be super helpful. We're not saying, how dare you try to indict David Miscavige? Fully in support of everything.
Indict away.
Indict away. Tell all your stories. Talk all about Shelley Miscavige's tight, hard nipples for some reason. Could you, which, you know, is one of the blog posts. Could you also talk about all the kids that were trafficked at the Flag Land Base? Because that would be super awesome. Thanks.
And it's another situation of different experiences as well. That's the fascinating thing about it.
Do you know the blog post that I'm talking about?
I don't know that one. I did not see that one. I don't know how I didn't see it. I've missed a few.
I'm not kidding, by the way.
Was
I'm
it
not
something
kidding.
he saw and he wrote a report about, or what was the context?
It was a moment between the two of them.
And he perceived her
Mm-hmm.
being some type of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. It could have been cold. There's a million reasons and ways that could have happened. That's ridiculous.
Right about that all day long.
But maybe.
Nice. We could also hear about all the trafficking that occurred at the Flagland base. It's not too much to ask, is it? Oh my God.
I bet he talks about it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know Tom either, but
Oh no,
I
no.
think maybe giving him those ideas, he'll talk about it.
I didn't. Well, I mean, I'm still waiting. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, I'm sure some people when they hear me be like, who would dare nominate themselves to be the content and the tone police? Isn't that what you're doing? I go, no, I don't think that's what I'm doing at all. I don't know. Maybe I'm just have a blind spot to myself, but I don't think that's if someone were to use the helpful, constructive feedback on the Indict David Miscavige, I don't think we're trying to police content or tone. We're trying to be like, could you also talk about this too? Because like, if you're talking about putting the head guy in jail, the best way to do that is to talk about all the crimes you saw committed on the biggest base in the world that you were in charge of. It seems like that's step one, but what do I know? I just grew up in the cult. So
I like what you said about how, you know, he and other international executives from Scientology or people who were involved in, you know, some of the human rights violations, that they could embrace their villain era. You know, I saw your video about that with Jenna, and I thought, you know, actually that's true. You look at how many content creators are former felons or former drug addicts, and that's the whole point, is former, but they embrace that villain era. And I think it would be fascinating. It would be, I think a lot of people would be very interested, but I think it would also help people who were around during that time maybe have some bit of closure, just to even have it acknowledged as, oh my gosh, back in the day, you know, this is what happened. This is how it was. Yeah. This is what we did.
Yeah.
But people, especially people who were kids at that time, because those are two very different experiences.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Well, you did just give me an idea of some other things I want to talk about regarding the David Miscavige initiative, and we can talk about that. We can jump to that if we want to right now, but how about we wrap up a little bit more with the Alan Stanfield. What was that last comment that I pulled up? It was I'm trying to find it. I wonder if I already accidentally unstarred it.
Yeah, see, Ichi Thayton says, yes, admit your villain era and how you're on the other side from a cult. That's fascinating. I would pay money to watch that.
That's the thing. Yes, it would be fascinating. It is so many things of all of the good things. It is entertaining. It would spread so far and wide. I wish I could turn off these damn StreamYard gestures. They're so annoying at this point. They used to be cute when we all started using StreamYard.
Yeah.
Are they Apple features or StreamYard?
Maybe you can't. I think it's Apple, because I think mine are off on my computer, because I never have mine on.
I'm going to ask Brock how I can turn those off. Because now they used to be cute. Now they're just annoying.
I think it's hilarious when they go off during inappropriate times. That's happened to you a few times.
Yeah. If someone were to truly embrace, and any major former Scientology exec truly embrace their villain, like lean into it. Yeah. Here's the real truth. Here's what it was really like. Here's the type of crimes that get committed. Here's how they get covered up. Here's how we justified it. Here's how it all ties back to David Miscavige. You have to tie it to yourself first before you can explain how it was tied to David Miscavige.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. All right. Well, let's just stick with the Indict David Miscavige stuff then, because I forgot what I was going to do. I was
I
talking
wonder
about that whole idea of
I wonder where that comes from. Like, is it just worried about judgment, or, you know what I'm saying? When you've been a person who was involved with these, abuses and the way that kids were worked, that if it's a concern over maybe how they might be judged, right? Because it's, I mean, let's be real, it's kind of a judgy community on the internet. It's all about judging. So you're not just talking about coming forward and sharing it, but doing it in a really public way. And I wonder sometimes how much of that is because of that Scientology point of view, because you never admit, you're wrong, unless you're being punished and you have to.
Yeah.
But you maintain like your viewpoint so strongly that is it or that lack of vulnerability? That's what I'm trying to say. There's a lack of vulnerability when not sharing those things. And I think it's extreme vulnerability to share it. And I'm wondering how much of that is coming from the background of Scientology. For some more than others, it's harder to do. And for some other people, it's easier to do, to have that vulnerability and go, well, this is what happened.
It is really hard for me to charitably explain why former executives don't do this, because I feel like if I had been one of those executives, it's the obvious move. It would be the most successful move. It would be the most interesting, relatable move to make. Not this whole one bad man made us all do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's lame. It's super lame. It's like, I understand wanting to send the one man to jail. The way you do it isn't just be like, the one bad man made all the good stuff bad and made us all do bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm being a little reductive, and I'm but it's just such an obvious thing to do, to speak about what happened under you, not just what happened above you.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems so obvious to me. So, hi, Jenna.
Hey, Jenna.
Okay, so my personal opinion is lack of remorse. So Jenna said this to me a few times, that she suspects that a lot of these guys just generally don't feel that what they did was wrong. So there's nothing to really confess to. Now, I hesitate to use the word confess because we're not being like, confess your crimes. We're really saying, can you talk about the shit that we all already know about, but we don't know your perspective?
Yeah.
So what do you think? So the she said lack of remorse, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What would that mean to you, Natalie?
For me, it would just mean a lack of recognizing my bad act, a lack of recognizing that what I did was wrong. Which I could see, because if you looked at it from the viewpoint of like, well, he grew up in Scientology and being in the Sea Org, and that's how it was then. And yes, that's how it was. That is when we were in, that's just how it was. And we normalize abusive behaviors because that's just how it was. But if you don't separate that out and recognize your role in that, she's right. That could be it as well.
Yeah, it's easy to say that they feel bad about what they did in Scientology as a general statement, but when asked to give specifics, I think they can't.
I wonder if it's hard to confront, right? If it's hard to think about. I know for me, some of the things that happen in Scientology, it's taken me a lot of years to confront and face some of it, or to recognize that it was wrong, to recognize that the times where I was a victim. It took me a long time to recognize and acknowledge that. Yeah. And I wonder if it's not kind of that same thing of really coming to terms with. Because even when Jenna talked about it in one of her videos about how, how the messengers, cleaned his room and other executives, and these were often, kids, and what they would have to do to take care of the senior executive adult. And they live differently. The really senior executives always had better food. They had, perks. It was a different experience. I'm sure it wasn't some cakewalk all the time because it was still the Sea Org. But I could see that if you're not really facing what happened and acknowledging, like, that's got to be hard. When I think about it, I mean, I feel resistive. Like when I try and think about, because Jenna has shared some of what it was like then. And if I was in Tom's shoes, that would be hard. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Is it? This is why I don't have any sympathy or a lot of empathy for this, is because I feel like it wouldn't be hard at all. Is it just me? I don't know.
I think if I, now I was a gal, I worked in the dining room in the Sea Org, and then for a hot minute in, Dunder Mifflin level, Continental Liaison Office, Treasury, nothing exciting. But I think it would be. If you think about things that we've done in our past that we weren't proud of, that we knew were wrong, it is difficult sometimes to have that remorse. That can take time. It's a lot. I mean, you're talking about years and a lot of people and a lot of damage and being involved with that to really face what that means for them today. It could be a lot, like Jen is saying, a lack of remorse for not recognizing it.
So I totally hear what you're saying. But the thing is, I tend to feel that no matter how bad what you did in Scientology was, there is a very real, reasonable, believable, and understandable explanation that we were all in a cult. We thought we were saving the world. We thought nothing mattered but the purpose of the group. We thought the ends justified the means. Nothing could possibly be more important, even human life, than accomplishing the aims of Scientology. We had a brief breath in eternity, and the next, trillennia of all beings in this sector of the galaxy depended on it. Like, it's okay. You don't have to you don't have to absolutely destroy yourself and beat yourself up over the things you did in Scientology. We all know why we all did the things we did in Scientology. It's time to talk about them. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like the whole we were in a cult thing alleviates the whole, oh, what did I do? What did I do? Like, when Mike went, oh, Leah, what were we a part of? What were we a part of? You were fucking the main dude. What do you mean, what were we a part of? I mean...
Well, and think about too, like how, again, with the internet, could there be, it be even harder to own up to that and to publicly face that, especially if you haven't really faced that, to communicate with people who were there or maybe harmed by that. That's such a large piece of the puzzle, for somebody to get closure. We're not talking about one person though. We're talking about a lot, because of his position, he affected a lot larger area.
Yes. And that's why it's funny, because on the one hand, Tom gets I give him so much credit and so much support and admiration for speaking out right now. But it's like the reason why it seems like these videos are like targeted at Tom Vocht is because he's expressed zero interest in speaking with Jenna or me about any of this, when we have together promoted his shit more than anyone. Zero interest. He'll text me being like, tell Jenna I said, hi. Like, Tom, you've got her fucking number. You text her and tell her you say hi. What? Like, Tom has not tried to communicate with Jenna in any way, shape, or form. Tom and I have had texts, not since our last couple of videos. And he's always like, tell Jen I said this, tell Jen I said that. I'm like, what are you talking about? You were Jenna's guardian. Why are you and I don't know each other. I mean, we've known each other, but we're not like, we've spoken a handful of times in lives. Why are you like, Jenna? Jenna's done 2 or 3 videos about this fucking thing now. And you have shown zero interest in talking about it. It's almost like, stay out of my way. I'll know if you're with me or you're against me. Well, how about the people who are trying to help and you just really don't show any interest in communicating about it? It's weird, Yeah.
I agree with what she says here. I think it's hard to face also that you were gaining something from went on. And I think that's very true. That's a big thing, to admit.
Yeah.
Who knows really why? Hopefully he starts talking about it, and hopefully it's received in a way that, I mean, that can be really, open. If he can be really open about it and have even conversations. I'd love to see a conversation with him and Jenna.
Yeah, totally. I'd almost be like, leave me out of it. You know, people are like, he wouldn't want to talk to you. He doesn't have to talk to me. I'm the least like, who cares? You know, but there was one blog post where he said, this is basically not an invitation just for everyone to tell their stories. This is an invitation for specific information about crimes. We don't need a ton of info. We just need the right info. And I thought to myself, then what's the point of the blog post? Tom Vocht knows every single former Scientology executive who has worked with David Miscavige. What is the point of reaching out to the public when the people who have the information you want are people you all personally know? I don't understand. What is the point of conducting something that has the appearance of like a forward-facing, community-driven movement, but not actually wanting any cooperation or input from the community the movement is supposed to be about? It's very confusing.
I think it makes it, and this isn't the first time something like this has happened. It's interesting to me how for a while I looked at it like being a different generations, right? Which is part of what it is. Because you have people who were in Scientology in the early days, a little bit later, the mid days, and then more recent, like for us. Though I'm one of the older. I'm not the oldest person here on YouTube. That'd probably be Tori, but I don't think Tori grew up in Scientology.
You're not older than Mitch, are you?
Oh, I forgot about Mitch. Well, did Mitch grow up in Scientology?
I mean, when you say grow up, I mean, he's been there for like 40, 50 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm 54. I don't know how old Mitch is.
I think Mitch is like 85.
No, he's not 85.
He's only a little bit older than Sterling.
Yeah. Just a tad. No, but that can be part of it too, because take Scientology out of the equation. How many arguments and disagreements, and like I'm to the age now where I'm realizing, like, I look at some younger people and find myself thinking things that I heard from my parents or my grandparents, you know, where it's like, oh, you just don't get it. Like even the language changes. I don't know if you're familiar with any Gen Z talk, but it's all very confusing. Fire is now a good thing.
Oh, this is a nice comment. Deanna Ross says, the reason I'm here is because my family played a big part in making Scientology grow in the 60s. I want to make up for the grift that was perpetrated on so many innocent people. Very cool. That's
hey,
awesome.
Deanna. Good to see you too.
Oh, I see. Was your question earlier whether like Mitch was raised in Scientology, like as a kid?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that he was, but some of it for a while, like when I first came on YouTube and you start learning about, you know, different disagreements and where things fall apart with communication, I could see that difference being a little bit of a generational difference. But it's also because, you know, like Jenna talked about in her video, where, you know, there are adults who even grew up in Scientology, but they're still adults when certain things are going on and it's affecting, you know, these kids.
Here, check out this one. It's no different than Laura needing to talk with Mike Brown.
Yeah.
She needed answers and he was willing to discuss it. Well, I mean, Mike Brown is sort of a rare animal. I mean, he's one of the most calm and humble and, you know, polite people I've ever known, really. And I think it takes that kind of animal. Sorry, animal's a bad word, but to have a conversation like that, to his credit, you know. His blog post was not anti-Scientology, just anti-Miscavige. That is a problem. How can you say this and be against trafficking? Under Scientology, not David Miscavige, both Tom and Dave were trafficked as kids. It's true. So David Miscavige and Tom Vocht were both child Scientology Sea Org members and auditors. Yeah. So if that's your experience and you're bringing, and the energy that you're bringing to this movement is, it's not Scientology that's bad. It's David Miscavige. It does beg the question, then do you actually think the things that happened under you at the Flag Land Base were okay?
Yeah.
Did David
That
Miscavige
is a
make
really good
you
question.
do all of those things?
Mhm.
You know, because when you guys were trafficked, L. Ron Hubbard was in charge, not David Miscavige.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm glad that she mentioned this because it reminded me of the other part of the blog post, which was, this is not about attacking Scientology. This is not about attacking Scientology. This is about going after David Miscavige. Or this is not about going Scientology. This is about going after David Miscavige. And I go, hold on. If you're calling David Miscavige the operator of an ongoing criminal enterprise, then you are saying the Church of Scientology is an ongoing criminal enterprise.
Mhm.
You cannot be running. If you're running the enterprise, the ongoing criminal enterprise, the thing you're running is the Church of Scientology. I don't understand the infatuation with pretending like this is not also an indictment on Scientology. It sends a
Mhm.
bit of a mixed message, to be honest.
Yeah.
The reason
It
the guy that
does.
runs the mob is a bad guy is because the mob is bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it's a matter of a different audience too, right? Because there are a group of former Scientologists who do believe that David Miscavige is the squirrel and he altered Scientology and that is the problem. I mean, those people do exist. When my husband at the time and I first left Scientology, that's where he was at. Scientology was good, but David Miscavige bad. And I was like, whatever you got to believe to get us out the door, I'm okay with it. And then eventually, he realized it was Scientology.
I think this is a great example, though. So someone like your ex-husband who had that belief at that time, maybe he still does, I don't know. If
No,
he
not
believed
anymore.
that, then he probably would also believe there's nothing wrong with children training as auditors. There's nothing wrong with expecting children to run past life sexual assault incidents. There's if he really said Scientology is wonderful,
Yeah.
then he would probably also think that those things were okay too.
He also would likely never have known about those things. He was never, I don't think he was ever audited outside of the local org. Maybe at Flag. It wasn't something I think he would have been really aware of. But and he got into Scientology as an adult. I think he was like in his 30s or something. And the interesting thing is I never spoke with him a ton about my experience because during our marriage we were both still in good standing, and you don't want to rock that boat until you got a game plan in place in case he would have turned me in. Like I would have gotten in trouble with Scientology for telling him about some of the things that happened to me growing up in Scientology that would paint Scientology in a bad light. That is absolutely something that could have gotten me in huge trouble. And after we left, I think I told him about some things, but they're just, there's just not a ton of time. And then we split up not long after that, realizing that outside of the cult, there just wasn't a lot holding us together. We got together in Scientology. And then outside, once we left, it was very different. Scientology is the thing that I think held us together, that our marriage was based on, which I think is not uncommon even in other religions in that way, right? You're what Christians call it being equally yoked, right? You're on the same page. And when that changes, especially me leaving, and I was very much so, it is a cult. I realized we were in a cult. And for him, it was, I think, some years before. And I'm not sure I've ever heard him use those words, but there was a point afterwards where he said that'd be hard for me to admit because it would admit the entire time was a waste. And I said, well, I don't think so. Because again, it depends on what your experience was in that cult. It's still a cult, but he was grappling with that, I think, for a long time. And he's someone who was only ever a public person, not as a child, got in as an adult, and still struggled with, in my opinion, facing some of the harsher realities. But what really got him, when he finally came to me about it, was the Tampa Bay Times articles. When those came out, after Mike Rinder left and Marty Rathbun, and they were doing those articles with the Tampa Bay Times, he came across it. and he read it, and that really opened the door, because I'm like, ooh, one, he read it. Secondly, he's talking to me about it. So he's not likely to write a knowledge report on me. But it's just fascinating to me because it's so different for each person. Even those of us that have shared experiences, the outcomes are still very different.
Yeah. Let me see. I saw another one here. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, the one I was looking for, I don't think is there. Constance says, if Tom does not want to talk to the former kids, it sounds like he can't face what was done to him under his watch. I can certainly understand why some people would see it that way. Deanna Ross, it's a very difficult thing to confront when you thought you were there for a good cause, clearing the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. I mean, I certainly thought that's what we were there for. I guess, and again, everyone has their own path and struggles with their own issues as they leave. I never really had this whole unraveling moment of, oh no, what do I really believe? Or, oh no, what have I wasted my life with?
Yeah.
I guess I was lucky that I still had a family starting at 26, started my own family at 26. And I never felt like I wasted my time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, for me, once
For
I
you, it
found
was
out there
really,
was no
yeah,
0
once
to
you
9
found,
and 10, I was like, oh shit, I wish I knew that earlier.
yeah. Oh, okay. I guess I'm done.
Oh,
yeah. It's
all
just
done.
it's not as cut and dry, I think, for a lot of people. But I think also, Aaron, you're like that with a lot of different things where you're able to just go, yep, nope. And then I'm doing this now. And you know what I'm saying? It's more cut and dry. And I think for a lot of people, it's not.
Yeah. All right. Jenna says, people who criticize people saying Scientology is a problem should take the time to listen to their stories before saying it's not true. If you won't hear the stories, then maybe just say nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. Or share your experience. People should share their experiences. But I think we really just all the way around, can be more conscious of recognizing that they might be different. And we have to allow for that and not feel threatened by that because someone else's experience was different or even good in Scientology. Those people exist.
I wonder what Tom's real pushback is to even the stuff that's being said, because one of the things that was so insulting is instead of responding in any way, he just called it like an OSA op or David Miscavige type operation. And you're like, that's a real shitty way to respond to actually, well-considered, thoughtful feedback and encouragement and promotion. It's actually a real shitty asshole way to respond to something like that. But it's like, I wonder what his actual objection would be. Because he could come back and be like, hey, look, what you guys are talking about is a great thing and there's value to that. And that has its own time and place. But what I'm talking about is this, and it's for these specific reasons. Like, there was never even an attempt to respond with meaningful information.
Well, didn't he say too that
I've heard the whispers, I've heard the attacks, and I'm not going to fall for it. It's like, what the fuck, dude? Are you even listening to what's being said? I'm sorry.
We might have fell for it though if he didn't watch the video because he'd only seen a few minutes of it, but then responded to it, because that's what happens is people come and they tell you things. This was said in a video or this was said, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's true, or that's somebody's perception of what they heard. And there's no shortage of people who are looking to take some bits of information and run it over to somebody to really gaslight them into conflict.
Yeah, totally.
But I would wonder that. I should interview Tom DeVocht.
Yeah, maybe you're less triggering for him.
I would love to. I don't have a history with him, and I'm not as much of an asshole as you are.
Yeah, let's see if he responds to you by saying, I'm not doing videos with anyone because I'm not taking anyone's side. It's like, who the fuck asked you to take sides? Do you want to talk about your initiative or not? What the fuck? It's so weird.
Yeah, there's no sides.
And it's like, and if your message isn't for everyone, then why are you putting it out into the world? Just send it to the, 20 or 30 former int execs that you already know. Like, keep it on the email chain,
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Of everybody, the people that I'm thinking of anyways, I feel like, and I don't know Tom, I only know him through what he's written. And he was writing things back when I think he left. Do you know off the top of your head when he left?
I want to say 2004, but I thought I heard him say something recently that made me go, oh, my date is wrong. But it's somewhere 2004, 5, 6.
Yeah, so he left before I did.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty positive he was on, writing, doing blog posts and on the different message boards that existed at the time in 2010 when I left. And him and so many others who were sharing experiences. Jeff Hawkins was who ended up, he wrote a book. What was it? Counterfeit Dreams. He was blogging a lot of stuff. All of them really helped me know I was making the right decision.
Yeah.
In leaving.
Yeah. Some people in the chat seem to be confused about whether Tom recently did an interview with Claire, but he didn't. They did a video together about Stacey Moxon. It was not an interview. And it had nothing to do with the Indict David Miscavige movement, really. It was just about Stacey Moxon, which is a great thing to talk about, but
yeah,
it's like that happened at the Int base. That didn't happen at the Flag Land base, the largest Scientology organization in the world that you were the number one man at. And that's not even to say, like, I wish people would talk about Stacey Moxon all day long. Like, that's a great, absolutely wonderful thing to talk about. But it's like, okay, that's wonderful. Still waiting to hear about all the stuff that happened at the Flag Land base. I mean, I don't know why that's so crazy. I don't know why that's a criticism. I don't know why that's an attack. I don't know why that's an OSAP. I don't know why that's David Miscavige's campaign to create division. It's like, it only feels that way because that's how you respond to it. Like, I don't even understand. I mean, I'll admit the first video I did responding to the first thing he wrote, I was pretty pissed off, but so was everyone else, including Leah Remini. And Tom told me. Because it made it sound like no one had ever done anything effective up until now, and he was here to get the real work done. There was something inherently insulting about it, but we moved on past that. Everything else we have said about this fucking thing since then has been honest, constructive feedback, and to be like, I've seen the hate and the blood. Anyway, don't get me. The more I talk about it, the more pissed off I'm gonna get.
Send me his contact info.
Now I am just going to sound hateful.
But it's understandable too how it triggers an upset to you. Like that's completely understandable.
Oh, thanks.
And that's part of the conversation. Your feelings are valid.
There's one I forgot from earlier. Ken, so good to see you, Ken. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. Scientology, the faux science of the mind. Great to see you, Nat. Great to see me too, right, Ken? Nat, if you interviewed him, would you ask the hard questions?
I'd let you write them, Jenna. Give me a list of all questions. I think that I actually think it would be really productive.
Was she making a joke about the word hard?
The hard questions?
The nips. Shelly's nips.
I doubt it.
You haven't read that blog post?
No.
You're going to love it.
I got to find it.
I'll send it to you. Mark Hardman, thank you for gifting 10 channel memberships. That's very
look. See, she says, no perv.
Oh, please. I didn't understand. I didn't understand the LOL at the end of the question. Like, would you ask him the hard questions? Isn't because funny thing to ask.
No, the joke is that I would be too soft on him. That I wouldn't ask questions. It would be hard or difficult.
Oh,
but usually I go where the conversation goes, and I think there'll be plenty of good questions.
Oh my God. What else is happening in the SPTV verse?
Oh gosh.
I'll look at the live
Oh
chat for this one. What do people want to know about?
yeah. There was I gotta go look back at your videos. There was one that you did I wanted to chat about. I can't remember which one it was.
There are some starred comments that I haven't gotten to, but
Mhm.
I'll take a look at the live stuff too. Okay, Deanna says, don't believe multi-generations explaining Scientology. Don't believe multi-generations explaining Scientology, but believe a person that poses as an advocate that's only been in the house for a little over a year. Oh yeah, this was back when we were talking about Alan and Scott. Yeah.
Yeah. That is such an interesting pairing. I still kind of shake my head at that one. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I get it. Like attracts like, and it's just.
Oh, this is the one I was
interesting.
looking for. This is one I was looking for. Oh, I think I'd misread it. Jojo says, name one high up Sea Org exec who left when David Miscavige was being nice to them. None.
Yeah.
I wonder what the true point here is, because the truth is we all believe that Scientology was essentially unplugging all of humanity from the Matrix.
Yeah.
And if you believe in that purpose and you're being treated well and life is good and things are going well, there's no reason to leave. There's no reason to leave. I don't even hold it against anybody, no matter how high up they were, that they only left when things became unbearable for them personally. I've always said that's when everyone leaves Scientology.
Yeah. Everybody has a different threshold.
Yeah. But having said that, normally what happens is you leave Scientology, you spend an unspecified number of years or the rest of your life decompressing and processing that experience and finding out that a lot of the shit that happened to you as a child and that happened to children around you and after you, when you were an adult, after you became an adult, that these things were horrifically damaging and abusive. And it's because of Scientology.
Yeah. It's the belief system itself.
Yeah. I personally believe, I wonder if you agree with me, there's no question David Miscavige made the Scientology experience and the Sea Org experience pretty much, well, I won't say as bad as it could possibly be, because I'm sure it could be worse.
Yeah.
Much, much, much worse than it was under L. Ron Hubbard. But all he was doing was taking what was already a destructive and abusive system and framework, and he just made it worse. And I think it's because, and I only say this because of what other people have told me who worked with L. Ron Hubbard, that L. Ron Hubbard may have been a liar, he may have been a charlatan, he may have been a con man, he may have been everything. But on some level, he did actually care about the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
On some level, he did demonstrate care, whereas no one's ever said that about David Miscavige. Well, I mean, that's not true. There are
Except the people in the hostage videos. He's got some hostage videos where they talk about he's so nice and kind. But that's to combat the story to people who've worked directly with him, who've come out and said, like, yeah, not so much.
Right. Exactly. Meaning, I guess I want to make sure I'm as accurate as possible. So there are plenty of people who have said that at times David Miscavige can be nice and this, but that's not actually what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who work really, really closely with him, both L. Ron Hubbard and David Miscavige. They'll say, well, of course, David Miscavige can turn on the charm like almost nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an act.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Charismatic cult leader. It's part of, like, you're in a cult. You have to have a charismatic cult leader.
Right. Totally. And people who work very, very closely with L. Ron Hubbard and have since left Scientology will still say, yeah, L. Ron Hubbard had a brutal temper. He could also turn on people just like that. But he also had a quality about him where he did actually seem to care about the Sea Org members that he had under him.
I mean, it could be. Look at some families have that situation where you might have an abusive parent, yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, I'm not even saying L. Ron Hubbard was a good guy. I'm saying I think David Miscavige is just a much worse guy. And so he took what LRH created, which was already horrible for kids, was already involved trafficking and everything, and he made it even worse. I forget what my point was, though. I had a reason I was saying that. I totally forgot my point. I'm getting old, Natalie.
Yeah.
The memory is the first thing to go.
That's what they say. You got to start doing that Sudoku.
What is Sudoku just for old people? I do Sudoku all the time. I'm getting started early.
You like do it to help with memory, but I'm like, I'm not trying to do math for fun.
I love Sudoku. It's so
that sounds
fun.
like a trick.
It's so much fun.
I'd rather do a puzzle.
I know I had a point. I want to bring this up, but I hesitate to bring up comments when I don't actually know what they mean totally. So let's look at this one. I actually find it easier to believe Scientology doesn't actually help anyone when I see it hurting people I care about repeatedly. I'm afraid I don't know exactly what this means.
So like when you see people and you meet more people, this is what I think anyways that she's saying, and you learn how much they were hurt by Scientology, it's even easier to believe that Scientology itself is bad, that Scientology itself is harmful. You know, even myself, there were moments, you know what I realized about the upper levels, the OT levels, the operating Thetan levels, and going out to Los Angeles and doing those levels and other things, I realized that part of why I felt so much better when I was there is because I went from being a mom of 3, you know, in Minnesota and doing all of the things and right. And then you go for auditing and you're forced to get a good amount of sleep. You got to get your 8 hours. You're forced to eat well, take vitamins. I mean, just doing that alone would improve anybody's mood, you know, having a vacation from your normal life. So as a public person, having done those things, and it wasn't until later that I realized like so much of what I got out of my auditing was just being in a different place and having some time to myself.
It's true, right? It's true. We will credit, well, I mean, I'll speak for myself. Anything that I ever derived or anything positive I ever got from my entire time in Scientology, you know, there's just the way you think about your own past and your own experience. Scientology tends to get the credit for that because working for Scientology and doing Scientology is what I was doing when I got those gains. And yet it's actually an inaccurate way to process your experience because like that wasn't unique. The thing that gave that to you wasn't unique to Scientology. And yet in my experience, I might still go, yeah, but it was Scientology. Yeah, but I only got it doing Scientology. It's a little difficult to split those hairs.
I think sometimes when we look at like a lot of us have a really good work ethic and things like that. And even sometimes people I met who get to know me or who, you know, I find out they've been watching my channel and they're like, well, you know, at least you got like a good work ethic out of it. And I'm like, and I realized that that's not really it or the resilience, right? It didn't, we had to be resilient to survive Scientology. Right. It didn't directly make us that way. It was actually quite different. It's like going through the trauma and the things that happen to each of us, or speaking for myself, to me, it was so bad at times. There was so much for such a long time that the day-to-day annoyances of everyday life, like that doesn't bother me. And so even if you think about like at work or other situations, it's like I can get a lot done and not get frazzled. And it's not because I was in Scientology. It was because I know what pain is. I know what hurt is. I know what suffering is. And I think that when you really live those things for real, it's really hard to get bent out of whack about things that are outside of your control or that, you know, other people might get upset about, you know, in a work situation. No one is going to die. No one's going to be locked in a room. You know, no one in most cases is going to be completely have their face ripped off. It just, in most jobs, that doesn't happen. And because that's a comment that I get a lot when I'm working with other people. And when some of them learn about my background, they're like, oh, is that something you got from Scientology? I'm like, no, I experienced so much trauma and bullshit in Scientology.
Yeah.
And then you add to it losing my soulmate. There's nothing anybody can do to me. There is nothing.
Yeah. Here's one that we can chew on for a little bit. Okay, Time Mark says, you only got those things because you were in Scientology. If you were a normal person growing up, those things would just be who you are. I think there might be a typo here. Don't give Scientology the credit for who you are. Okay, you only got those things because you were in Scientology. I mean, I think what they're saying is you only think you got those things from Scientology because you were in Scientology. So this is an interesting, I mean, first of all, I think it's totally true. I want to use a very specific example to me. If people go to me, where do you get like your confidence and your communication skills from? I will, you know, if it's just a private conversation, I'll be like, I mean, ironically, I kind of got it from Scientology. I was kind of a real shy, introverted person when we were still in school. We get picked on a lot. We get bullied a lot. We were kind of insecure, kind of afraid of girls and stuff like that. And then there was a particular course that I did in Scientology that for me made me feel like it turned me into more of a grounded, confident person. And
Which
yet,
course?
it was Key to Life. Key to Life for me was a fantastic course.
Interesting.
Key to Life and LOC. And it's funny because for sure when I say, and you can't even do those courses in Scientology anymore.
I heard that. I didn't know that.
It's totally true. They don't exist anymore. It certainly, I mean, somebody would have to be an absolute imbecile to mistake what I'm saying as an endorsement for Scientology. But if someone were to ask me that question, it's hard for me to know how to answer that question in any other way. How would I possibly answer the question in any other way?
And state the question.
Where do you get your communication skills from, or your confidence, or kind of your sense of self or whatever? I'd be like, for me, my lived experience was I was this way, and then I did this thing, and then I felt a different way, and now I'm a butterfly. I don't like. I would never tell anyone, if you should join Scientology and convince them to bring back the Key to Life and life orientation course. It's like, people get so ridiculous about how dare you say something that someone could. Why'd you say something positive? You toxic cis white male. You probably voted for Donald Trump, you piece of shit. You guys all know who I'm talking about. But like, honestly, it's like, this is a very insightful comment, right? Basically saying you would have grown up to be the person that you are. A lot of that is just inherent and natural. And yet, because you were in Scientology and working for Scientology, when you grew up, it feels like that was the reason. I think it's probably true.
Yeah, we are who we are.
That's the thing.
But
how do I know?
Well, I guess the question I would ask is, do we really need to know? Does it really matter how we got here? It's interesting to talk about and to try and kind of put those pieces together. But no one knows for sure, because and that's why, like, I don't even look back on and have like regret when it comes to my time growing up and in Scientology. I would have rather have learned some life lessons in a different way, but those were the cards that I dealt, and that's what happened. But I'm so happy today and with who I am today, and I'm still a work in progress, but I've never been more happy about who I am and where I'm at. And that is not because of Scientology. I think I still would have gotten here, even if I didn't go through the difficulties and the hardships, but it's hard to say. But that's kind of to my point. It wasn't Scientology made me this way. It was more what I had to draw on within me to survive Scientology. And I learned certain survival skills and ways of dealing and coping and getting along with other people that I found helpful.
I really like that last statement. It's what I had to draw on to survive Scientology.
And I think that's why so many of us have a different experience post Scientology, right? Many of us share the same experiences, but we're at different places in our healing, or we respond differently. And my personal opinion is because we are different people, despite Scientology and our shared experience, we're still who we are. I mean, you got 3 kids, I got 3 kids, well, 5 kids with my stepkids, and you raise them pretty much the same way, and they're all completely different people. They are not the same. They don't like the same. They don't do a lot of things the same, yet they were raised in the exact same household, pretty much the same way. I think it's the same thing in Scientology. We were beat over the head with a lot of the same things, but we're still who we are. You know, you hear when I've spoken to like Rick Ross, he talks sometimes about getting people to remember who they were before the cult. And that's impossible for those of us who grew up in Scientology because we have no recollection really of what that is. But we knew inherently, like even in the Sea Org, I would get in trouble for joking and degrading because I have a sense of humor. And a lot of that I attribute to like in Hawaii. They have it's like you joke about everything. It's part of who I am. Even being, you know, friendlier. It's part of that culture. It's part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we default to, you know, if we let ourselves.
Yeah. There's a few comments starred from Jenna that I want to wait. One just disappeared. Oh. I just want to make sure we get them in the right sequence. Okay, let's see this one. If you're really there to help people, it's hard to see people around you getting treated terribly. It was easier to accept that treatment myself. Seeing it happen to so many was the ultimate deal breaker. This is one of the really interesting things about Jenna's story of, I don't want to say, I don't want to speak for her, but like there was a point where for her, the contradiction between what all the Sea Org members she was there with were being told about why it was so important for them to work this hard. The contradiction that the reason was because we have to save everyone. And that means we care about everyone so much. And it's why the work is so important. That the contradiction between that and everyone around her being treated like pieces of shit and garbage with no rights and no trust and no everything. She's like, yeah, this is, we can't care about them if we don't care about each other.
Yeah.
And when an executive would get up in front of the staff muster and say, you're all SPs, you're all in lower conditions, you're all this. Now, what's crazy is I never experienced that at ASHO. We did have the whole org get assigned a lower condition by David Miscavige, actually. But like we actually didn't have executives talking to us quite like that. So it's also interesting to have, to see many examples of it actually getting worse. Like the people actually being treated worse and worse and worse and worse, the higher up in the echelons of the Sea Org people were.
Something that we were never told or aware of, because those same people would be at the int base, come back down to the PAC base at the blue buildings, and you don't talk about those things.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. My sister was at the int base and she would come back and not talk about any of it.
Right. Now, it's funny. I just realized that what I just said, people being treated worse and worse and worse, the higher up in the echelons of the Sea Org they are. Alan Stanfield would probably be like, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Maybe he's just not doing it as eloquently. Maybe he didn't do Key to Life and Life Orientation.
Alan,
course.
You're a terrible communicator. And you use your stories to try to make other people wrong. You don't just tell your story and give your opinion. You're always out just trying to tell everyone else that they're wrong. And that's why nobody likes you, because you're a fucking piece of shit.
Don't hold back, Aaron. Don't hold back.
There was this other question or comment from Jenna, but it came earlier. If you're there for power and supremacy, then seeing that is not a problem. I think she's talking about seeing people being treated poorly. But
yeah. And if you're there, if your goal there, because I often feel this way about the people who are still there. I think there's perpetrators and there's victims. And by perpetrators, I'm not just talking SA. I'm talking like the people who really seem to get a kick out of enforcing penalties and punishments and being able to control people and have that sense of power.
Yeah.
Then you don't care what you're doing, because if you're there to control, some people thrive because, I mean, David Miscavige.
Jenna, this is a great thing she explained to me. Oh my God. The difference between the experience, the culture, the atmosphere, and the experience of being in an org like the CMO, as opposed to being in a service org, or even the CLO for that matter, but a service org like ASHO, here's the big difference. She's like, in the CMO, it was easy to, like, they didn't really care about your stats. And I'm going to take some liberty with my paraphrasing of all this. Like, what ensured your survival or what got you a promotion in the CMO was not your stats or your production. It was who liked you. And that if you cared about getting your stats up, it was a piece of cake to get your stats up. Meaning, I was going to say, they're easy to falsify. Now, I don't mean actually falsify the graph. I mean, you could do a ton of bullshit busy work and get your stat up, and they genuinely didn't care. And so, whereas at ASHO, there was no part of the mind of any Sea Org member at ASHO that's like, if someone in my org likes me, I'm going to get promoted to the CMO.
Yeah.
But in CMO, it was all about, if someone likes me, I'm going to get promoted to RTC. Because everyone in CMO was qualified for RTC. And it might not be literally everyone, but if you're CMO qualled, you're RTC qualled. I'm going to say that. I think that's true. Let's see. Yeah, Jenna says in CMO, if you kiss butts, you get ahead.
You get ahead.
And that's not true in a service org. In a service org, you can kiss all the ass you want. Your stats are down. You're in the same shit pile everyone else is in. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm burying the lead here. She's like, so in CMO, there was so much politicizing, the words are failing me, trying to jump, ladder climbing, backstabbing, gossiping.
Game of Thrones.
It was like Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Not in the service orgs. All anyone cared about is, could you get your damn stat up? But in the CMO, it's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I was like, that's an amazing, like, when I hear the story, I'm like, God damn, when you think, I just couldn't have imagined there was this entire experience that's like existed right there next to mine the entire time. And I didn't even truly, like, I didn't have that perspective until Jenna told me that like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean they don't care about stats? And she's like, any CMO programs can easily get their stats up by writing a bunch of programs and doing all the primary targets and getting, like, you can get your stats up and accomplish nothing. Doesn't mean anything. They don't care. Okay, so Jojo says that happens in the real world. People get promoted if they get on well with their senior managers. I certainly know that's what happens in the real world. But also in the real world, a lot of people don't have any statistics for their job.
Yeah. Some people don't know what the product of their job is. That's an interesting thing to go from, like, and you and I have talked about this, working working out in the real world and realizing how, like, it's so different. And even though I've been out of Scientology for 15 years, I've been out of the Sea Org longer. I think that maybe it's because of the age I was at. It just imprinted so much that even if I'm doing things out in the yard, like, for me, how some people, it's like they're doing better in life because now they're starting to get this done and get that done and stuff. For me, it's been like the opposite. Like, if I can not finish something because it makes no sense to finish it, even like if I'm weeding in the yard and I don't do it all, that's okay. You can do it for 10 minutes and walk away. And those are the things that struggle seems like a weird word to use, but where I'm working on myself of like, okay, you don't have to work at a 10 all the time,
Yeah.
especially, it's just not, it's not like that. And nobody else is working like that.
Yeah.
And you look weird if you do.
I tend to pendulum swing between working my guts out and then sitting around and doing nothing for as long as possible. It's hard for me to find the sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we share that. We're similar that way. Where I would work, collapse, work, collapse. And and that's why I've not done any videos. Old Natalie would still have done the videos on top of working the crazy hours that I'm working. New Natalie is like, no, I still need my time. I need my time to decompress. I will get to it. It will be happening. And that's a win. That's a huge thing for me to feel like I'm blowing it off. But no, it just doesn't fit fully yet with my schedule. I'm figuring it out.
All right. Jenna says, in a service org, the product of your job is important. In CMO, your product is just a bunch of red tape, busy work, and cross orders. I always thought I would never be able to handle having one of those sort of do nothing jobs at the CLO where you're just in an office sending telexes all day and supposed to convince yourself you accomplished something at the end of the week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd be like, my God, at least I was able to actually work with real people and try to get them, but it wasn't even my job. I was like helping my juniors, like at least I was dealing with real people, real services, real courses. Like you felt like you accomplished something at the end of the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part
of my job in treasury was I handled the treasury for the cadet org. So the cadets would come in with their money, and I would handle the deposits, and because they would get paid, the cadets would do missions. And then whatever org they were in doing the mission needed to pay the cadet org. Not that the cadets themselves ever saw that money.
Oh,
but it was so cute because they would come into the office and be like these, trying to be little grown-ups, which they had to. That's what they were being forced to be. But it was always enjoyable. Like I would shut the door when they would come and just chat with them and try and get them to be kids for a hot minute.
Hey, we've got Dusty Soda Dispenser.
Hey, Dusty.
No, actually, I'm the reason we're coming on this late, not Natalie. It wasn't her fault.
Yeah.
It was totally mine. Yeah, Dusty probably has no idea. Yeah, I mean, I spent all day chasing a PI down to Fort Myers and back, so that's one of the reasons we're on so late.
Exactly.
Okay, Nathaniel Christopher says, I understand that some of my positive life skills and attributes that relate to my current success and stability came from a really fucked up part of my childhood.
Amen.
Yes.
And I think you can go, you go either two ways. It seems most common where you don't want to experience that again, or you don't want anyone else to experience. So you try to live your life in a certain way that you're never behaving in those ways.
Wow, look at this, really kind of brings it home. This is really insightful. Would you give Scientology the credit for your parenting? Probably not. It's who you are. Oh, that is such a good question, because that really brings it into focus. Like, no, there's not a single piece of Scientology that I would credit for my parenting, other than the idea that I should talk to my kids like they're real people and not just like little objects or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm only sort of inferring that I take that from Scientology, but you're just like, no, it's common sense to me. To me, it's common sense, like, yeah. I mean, I loved when my kids were little, having like real little conversations with them and asking them questions and not just giving them yes or no answers, but explaining to them why that was the answer and seeing how interested they would get. Like, it's just and yet that's not really, Scientology. Like, I never even once ever, I feel like I'm jumping subjects a little bit, tried to give any one of my kids a locational assist or a contact assist or a body comm or a nerve assist or or anything. There wasn't even one part of me that was like, maybe I should. I was like, no, that's garbage. Total garbage.
And that's when you were still in.
Yeah, we were still Scientologists.
Yeah. Yeah, which is pretty fascinating.
Yeah. I'm almost like, that was one of those things in Scientology where I'm like, oh man, we got to pretend to believe this shit.
Mhm. I think some of my parenting skills, some of the stuff I look back on, because I've talked to my kids are grown now. I got kids in their 30s, and we have some really interesting conversations. And having, some of the things I was like, wow, did I do that because of my Scientology upbringing? Like, would I have done that if I wasn't? Mostly like I don't know. It was like full-blown espionage when it came to my kids. Like, I will toss a room. I will go through your garbage. But I also think that's good parenting. I always kind of struggled with that later and looking back and going, okay, was that an epic parenting move? Or was that like, I just feel like some of my instincts were kind of from my upbringing in Scientology, especially in the Sea Org, or using Scientology, like things about outpoints, right? They're for those that don't know, L. Ron Hubbard has this whole series. I think it's called the Data Series. It's a data series. It's stuff where he talks about outpoints.
The data series. Yeah.
It's how you evaluate data, but it made me acutely aware, or like the hypnosis drills, right? What do you see? You're not dubbing things in.
Yeah.
And I found that slipping into, my parenting. Even my mom would vary the question as a child. Did you clean your room? Yeah, I cleaned my room. And if I looked at your room, would your room be clean? No. And it's varying the question as you would in an auditing procedure. But at the same time,
for a more precisely worded sec check question.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's my mom's parenting style was sec checking. It was kind of like that, and I fought that, but it would become a default too, or recognizing you drop the time out of that. Like, no, you're leaving this out. Like it's an omission. Like I was much more, I think, aware of outpoints, but that's not necessarily either. It's like, because then I was always looking at my kids during those teenage years as, just, I think I was more paranoid as a parent, because add to it too, before we left Scientology, the fear that they would get into the hands of the psychs. That was a real thing for me. And when I never forget when Shelby got in trouble in school in the 2nd or 3rd grade because she stole some jelly beans. She stole the teacher's jelly beans. And this was in the 90s, and the teacher was all like trying to diagnose her and stuff. And I pulled her out of the school, found a different school, because I'm like, no, we're not doing that. But I still to this day question parenting hack or Scientology.
I remember it must have been, I don't know if it was a podcast or whatever it was, but I remember when the kids were little, I remember hearing from somewhere this datum, the smarter your kids are, it's either the more they will try to lie to you, the better they will try to lie to you. And I'm like, of course, because they want to be able to get away with doing the things that they want to do, but they don't think, I'm like, of course. And so when I would catch my kids lying, I would be like so amused at the lengths and the skill and I was be like, you're going to have to do better than that.
Yeah. I would be like,
I remember getting upset at my kids trying to lie to me because I'm like, they're trying to flex those muscles, trying to flex those brain muscles,
It's good life skills training. You got to talk your way out of this one. You can kind of guide them and be like, no, you're going down the wrong route there. That's not believable.
Yeah. I like this comment. You treated your children as people, not as adults in tiny bodies. There's a huge difference. That's right. I always spoke to my children and listened, but knew their limitations. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because this whole idea of treating them as adults in small bodies, it's almost like in a Scientology perspective, how that mostly translates is treating them like adult staff members, and means you treat them like shit. You bark at them, you order them around, non-compliance, blah, 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 blah. And yet you realize, no, they're just little people with limitations. And my girls were mostly angels. I mean, like, we never had these terrible twos. Like, I'm sure they've gotten in trouble here, they've gotten in trouble there. You know, they lie about this, they lie about that. But like, we never had any huge behavioral problems. Or, I mean, but it's funny because I can give you some specific examples that are like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. But by and large, like, it's been a piece. It's been smooth sailing.
That's good.
You know. I don't even know why I said all that.
Yeah.
I guess I've always attributed that to, like, you know, they knew that no matter what happened, like, even if they came home and they got in trouble for something, I'd be like, look, it's important for you to understand why.
Yeah.
Well, like, the consequence, like, even if they got caught for something, if they did something and they got caught for it, right? And it's a big deal. I'd be like, look, the thing itself, not a big deal. The consequences of getting caught doing the thing, that's the big deal. Like, and I'm being kind of vague, but it's like, and you have to understand that. You have to understand that even if I don't see why it's a big deal. If you know what the consequence is going to be, that's what makes it a big deal. But trying not to make them feel like they're bad. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, you got to understand consequences, you know? Yeah. We never really came down on the kids hard for anything, but we tried to help them understand why things mattered.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's really important. And that's something that my mom actually did do, is she would try and frame it in a way that I believed it was a choice that I had. But she would lay out what happens if you do this, what happens if you do that. What are you going to choose? You know, but she would arm me with that knowledge. And that's something that I tried to do with my kids as well, is like, hey, I've been down this road. Let me tell you how the story ends. You know, and so much of it is, I wish I would have accepted earlier on in my parenting that they learn through mistakes.
Yeah.
We all learn through mistakes by making mistakes.
Yes.
And then you find out later that it's not even about it. It's just, if you can learn from the mistake, then there's no real mistakes, because you needed to learn that, and you did. And what better place to learn from so many mistakes than when you're in a safe place with your parents at home, to be able to make those mistakes and learn. So some of those things, like, I realized as they got a little older, that sometimes I got to let them fall on their face. Or they will not learn. I cannot protect them from the world. And I remember making a conscious decision that I wanted to raise them to be, happy was a given. Of course, I want you to be happy. But what I want more than that, and this is the truth, what I really felt I wanted for them more than happiness was an ability to be resilient, an ability to, no matter where they were, what trouble they got in, that they could get themselves out of it. Yeah. That they could do that they were confident enough in their actions, in their decisions, especially, with, raising girls. And my youngest was my son. It's, and that's something we talked about later on too, because they definitely grew up that way. You could drop either one of my girls almost anywhere, and they will figure it out, and they will survive and then thrive. It's just interesting that way, that, like, wow, and I've questioned that, like, wow, should their happiness have been the most important thing? But I think happiness comes with accepting your mistakes as lessons. Then you don't regret, you don't have regrets about it. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And then I figured, by the time we left Scientology, I was like, my girls were in college and my son was in his mid-teens. And then, at least after we left Scientology, I thought, well, at least now they can go to therapy. Whatever I might have messed up on, they can go to therapy now.
It's funny. I want to respond to this one. She goes, Aaron's the soft touch dad, I bet. Get away with lots in a good way. It's funny because in many ways the answer is yes, but I'm also the other one. So, funny story. I got two funny stories I want to tell. So the last month or two of school this year, my youngest and Heather have just really been butting heads, and she can't get Brisbane. This is the little girl at the end of all my videos. She couldn't get Brisbane to get up and go to school in the morning. And to the point where the school was making sort of an issue out of truancy. I'm like, what do you mean she won't get up out of bed in the morning? She's like, I can't get out of bed in the morning. I'm like, I don't even understand those words. Like I'm like, I don't understand how this is possible. And so I go, okay, Brisbane, guess what? I'm the one taking you to school every morning. I will be here at this time, and we're gonna go. She's like, okay. And so all of a sudden she's, she starts getting to school in the morning. And I'm like, so how come you can get up and go to school when I take you, but you can't get up and go to school when mom takes you? She goes, you're much scarier than mom is. And I thought to myself, that is the right answer.
Good, healthy dose of fear where kids can understand where the boundaries are, consequences.
Okay. But the exact same child,
Mhm.
just 1 or 2 weeks before the school year was over, she had an assignment to turn in a piece of pottery for something. Now, Heather and the girls have been doing pottery for basically the girls' whole lives. There are handmade pottery pieces all over the house. Okay. Brisbane could have turned in literally any legitimate handmade piece of pottery.
Mhm.
She turns in a professionally made Japanese teacup that was bought from the store. Okay. Okay. The teacher basically catches her and, sends an email to me and Heather, like, Brisbane was caught. We suspect that Brisbane cheated on this assignment. And was this, really, her or whatever. And Heather's all conflicted because Heather does not want to, lie to the school. I'm like, well, don't lie to them. Just be like, oh yeah, Brisbane does pottery all the time. Just sort of give them like a no answer. I'm like, don't turn her in. Don't admit that she fucking turned in something that she bought. Right. But this is an example. Like, on the one hand, Brisbane knows I am not going to put up with her not getting up and going to school. On the other hand, I don't give a shit if she turned in a piece of pottery that was bought from a store. I don't care. Right. And so anyway, so then Brisbane, I'm like, Brisbane, if you got to be smarter about this. Look at the bottom of the fucking cup. There's a manufacturer's stamp on the bottom of the cup. What are you thinking? And
that's a lazy grift.
I was like, you got to be smarter about this.
You are better than that. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, imagine making a little kid, though, because the teacher was like, imagine making a kid feel like an absolute piece of shit in front of all of her peers for just trying to take a shortcut on something. I was like, why did you not just take any of the other 100 pieces of handmade pottery? She's like, because they're all ugly. They're not up to my standards.
How do you argue with that?
This fucking teacher went onto the internet to like find the exact precise cup just to prove Brisbane had doubled down on her lie. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're supposed to be helping these kids.
Yeah.
These kids are going to look back on their school and they're going to remember you as being the bitch teacher, not the one that like helped them or inspired them or loved them or anything. Like, you're going to be the teacher kids hate. And it's like, but it's weird because she did cheat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And honestly, she was so petrified about this and mortified about how this teacher was humiliating her in front of the class that she's like, I don't want to go to school for the last week. And I'm like, can you do that? And she goes, they already closed the grades for the year. I've already got like all A's. And that's the other thing, Natalie, treating a student like this when they're a straight A student.
Yeah.
And
that doesn't make sense.
And it's like, you couldn't just let it go. And so anyway, I was like, oh, the grades are closed for the year. Good. Skip school the last year. I don't give a shit. Skip school the last week. And she's like, okay. She was over here swimming every day. But I'm almost like, Brisbane, I respect the effort, but that you gotta up your game a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be smarter if you're going to do that.
It's not a lie if you believe it. That's right. Oh my goodness. What is it? Oh, never turn in incredible work if you're cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Go for the B minus.
I know. Oh, all right. Well, We could talk all night, but it is 11 o'clock. Hold on. Here's an interesting question. Do you both love your parents? Does it still surprise you that they believed in Scientology and that they believed it was good for you both to be raised in Scientology? It is a hard question. I don't know. What do you think about this?
On the does it still surprise you that believed in Scientology? It doesn't surprise me that my mom believed in Scientology. My mom struggled with drug addiction and was a stripper when she got into Scientology. So my stepdad, the stability that he offered her was better than what she was going through at the time. So I get what the appeal was. She was so young. She was only in her early 20s. And she had 2 kids, and, you know, she had left my dad and us for a while, for like a year. She said to find a better life for us. And that's when she met my stepdad, who got her into Scientology. And then she came back and got us. And, you know, they had a whole court battle. We got kidnapped by each side a couple of times. My uncle would pick us up for ice cream and then take us to our mom.
Wow.
My dad would show up, barge into the house, and take us back. I mean, you know, they actually fought in court over it. And then my mom won custody because she was the more stable one in that situation. And I remember at the time, even my dad had tried to say, well, but, you know, she was like stripping. And I'll never forget, I was told that the judge looked at him and said, she had a job. You don't.
Wow.
She was working, you know, which was like, so, and I also know that my mom did not grow up in Scientology, but she had a very difficult upbringing. Her dad chased her with a knife when she was 16. Like, she had to move out and find her own way. And, you know, she did, I think, the best that she could do. And she struggled. When we left Scientology, she went through a lot of guilt over getting us into it. I can't believe I did that I brought this into our life. And I would always tell her, like, it's okay. It's done. We're not living that now. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life or any length of time suffering my suffering. You know, it was already going to be difficult enough. I want to find the joy, and we're going to do fun things together. But it's something that she struggled. You know, she passed away 2 years after we left, almost that whole time, almost no matter what I said. And I didn't see anything good coming out of blaming her. And the truth was, despite everything that I'd gone through, and I'd gone through some horrific things, I was never of the mind to blame her for it. Even though I was raised in it, I was an adult. I didn't leave until I was 40. So I did, you know, what is that, 22 years of adulthood in Scientology. And we all know and understand the reasons why you stay. Disconnection. You're convinced like your life's going to go into the gutter, you know, if you leave. All of the things. Losing your entire family, friends, your network, everything that you know makes it difficult. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I never held that against my mom at all. And I think too, because I don't know, if I was in her situation, I'm not sure I would have made a different choice given her situation and what she was living. And she more than tried to, you know, make up for that. And I just didn't want to spend, my mom, you know, she had a kidney transplant and her health wasn't the greatest. I also didn't want to spend whatever time I had left with my mom being all, you should have never got us in Scientology. Because again, I go back to what we were saying earlier. Who's to say what my life would have been? You know, so I don't have a lot of regrets about the past or even my time in Scientology, because today, you know, I'm using it all to my benefit. And that's part of why I wanted to, you know, come back and do something on YouTube. When I did that interview with you, I'm like, I'm clawing back every dollar, you know, that my family put in, or all the labor, the stuff that we didn't get paid for, being in the Sea Org or being on staff, including my mom. Like it's, I don't know. I just never felt that I blamed her or felt resentment about it.
Yeah. I don't feel like I find it hard to believe that my mom ever believed in Scientology at all either. And I don't feel that I harbor even the slightest amount of blame
Yeah.
for anything to do with our involvement in Scientology. What does end up becoming a problem is the times when it seems like she takes it so personally when I talk about my experience in the way that I do,
Yeah.
as negatively as I do, and then feels free to let me know that. And I go, that's really what I have a problem with. Not actually, not having been in Scientology, but how she responds to how I talk about it.
Yeah,
And
because you're not blaming her. You're not saying this is your fault, but it sounds
right.
like that's what she's hearing. That's
Yeah.
how she's perceiving it. She is hearing. And I don't doubt that for her as well, there's probably some underlying, some huge guilt there about all of it.
Mm,
And then to hear your child talk about those things. Honestly, that's why I didn't tell my mom for the until it was part of what helped her decide to leave. I didn't tell her. She didn't know for 20 years about my sexual assault or how
mm,
it got covered up in the Sea Org, any of that. She thought it was the short story they told. And I let her think that the entire time. And when
wow.
I told her, she said, that alone, if you would have told me that earlier, I think we would have left. I'm like, well, I hear you saying that, but I kind of don't think so. Back then, I don't
Right.
think she would have fully been ready yet.
Right.
But when she found out, it was a done deal. She had
Mm,
experienced enough things that she herself already had and felt her doubts. And that was like the last straw, because when you're in Scientology, I couldn't go to my mom and tell her what happened in the Sea Org. I wasn't allowed to. And that's just how it was for us, for me growing up in Scientology. The rules were life. That's how it was. That's all that we knew. Those are the boundaries we operated in. You couldn't spread in theta. I couldn't tell her about a lot of what happened. And then when we left, this almost makes me cry. I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want her to feel any guilt about it.
mm,
She was also, her health, like I said, her health wasn't the greatest. She died 2 years later. And I just didn't see any good in that because she already felt so much guilt.
mm.
And that, just as a parent, I was a parent myself. And I know I've lamented over mistakes that I felt I've made at times with my kids, and I've had to give myself grace about it. And my kids they're totally cool. They're fine. But it's a whole interesting, different dynamic, I think, when you have parent child in Scientology and then leaving. And it's so different for each family as well. Not all families come back together after leaving Scientology. For a lot of them, there's still a lot of strife and issues. And I'm fortunate in that my family was close and remained close. But I just didn't want to make it any worse for her. It's the same reason why I've gotten, each time I share the story about my assault, when I've talked about it on my channel, I get emails like, well, are you going to press charges? I'm like, one, the guy is dead. He died early in life, in his early 50s, I believe. And secondly, it would do no good. He has children. What good would it do to name him and say who it was? Nothing. No good at all. And it's not my job to protect his kids. I recognize that. But as a human, I couldn't do that. Especially after they lost their piece of complete shit father,
Yeah.
which he wasn't, I didn't know him. But I mean, you don't do things like that and be this like decent human being.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that kids should pay the price for the sins of their parents either.
Right.
If he was still alive, maybe I would have felt different about it. And when I found out he died, and I think I shared this with you when we did that interview, I didn't feel any safer. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel nothing. I felt nothing.
Mm.
And that for me is when I realized that revenge and getting back and none of that did a fucking thing. It did nothing but prolong pain.
Mm.
It's just fascinating to me how, we each go through those things and what that looks like today. And I think that's why I love doing interviews, because I love hearing other people's stories.
Yeah.
If I could only do that. You know?
That's amazing. One of the things that you said there earlier on in your answer about why you didn't really hold anything against your mother is you said at one point, because how do I know how it would have turned out otherwise? And then you actually made something click for me. So I do not have fond memories of public school. I remember being very anxious, always nervous. Um, there was a lot of bullying. There was a lot of fighting. We, me and my brother were not like comfortable, confident, secure, successful students. We were actually very underachievers. We would end up in the gifted program for this or the gifted program for that, but we were not living up to our potential. And it was an uncomfortable experience, school was. And I'm saying all this because I'm realizing now that what we mentioned before, sometimes you'll take something out of something, but it doesn't get the credit for it. I had a very particular teenage Scientology training experience of being an outer org trainee at Flag, not being a Sea Org member. That's a very specific experience. I'm gonna connect all these dots. I'm gonna put some dots on the board and then connect them. Where I was going from an environment of feeling inadequate, of feeling somewhat scared, anxiety ridden, being worried about being bullied and stuff, to another environment where even though I was a teenager, my mom was at Flag with me, so I wasn't without my parent, being celebrated, being treated like an adult, being given respect, sure as fuck wasn't getting bullied. And that's interesting, right? Because I know that on a certain level, I'm going to equate this experience of being in Scientology. But really, it's just going from an environment where you're being bullied and you're anxiety ridden to being in an environment where that doesn't even exist. That's got nothing to do with Scientology. That has to do with a child being able to thrive.
Yeah.
Because they're not being fucking bullied. And it just kind of clicked. It clicked for me because I have always felt that if I had stayed in school, it would not have turned out well. There was, I had no reason to feel or believe that that was not the route to happiness and success. And a lot of people in my neighborhood and my school are not with us anymore. Whether it was crime, jail, drugs, or whatever. And we were never like delinquents like that. But we were not happy.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I could carelessly equate being in Scientology and joining staff with making me happy. But it wasn't Scientology that did that. It wasn't auditing that did that. It wasn't courses that did that. It was just being in an environment where you weren't being bullied. Now, I want to juxtapose this with a young, I'll say child, like child Sea Org members at ASHO who were on posts. I'm going to say Huckleberry Taylor. He was probably a St. Hill Special Briefing Course practical supervisor, probably from the age of, 14, 15, 16 years old.
Wow.
He was bullied by his seniors like a motherfucker. Jim Plett, Bill Screevers. He was bullied at base briefings. He'd get caught running up a tab at the local Blockbuster and creating a PR flat. Like the Blockbuster would send a legal, delinquent balance notice to OSA, and this poor fucking 15-year-old kid.
They just came down on him.
It's such a small, stupid example, but it's kind of like me being pissed off at Brisbane's teacher for trying to humiliate a straight A student for just trying to take a shortcut on a project.
Mhm.
If you're just a normal 15-year-old kid in the real world that runs up a fucking balance at a Blockbuster, no one gives a shit. This
Mhm.
poor kid is a Sea Org member. They bring him up in front of 1,000 fucking Sea Org members at weekly base briefing just to fucking humiliate him in front of 1,000 of his colleagues and his coworkers.
Mhm.
And the reason why I want to give those two examples is because it's interesting that in my experience of just having been an out-of-org trainee who wasn't in the Sea Org, didn't have a post other than to do courses all day, didn't have a responsibility other than to do courses all day. I equate that as having been a much better alternative to my experience at school.
Mhm.
But for someone like Huck Taylor, his experience of being a teenager, a young teenager in Scientology, totally different.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm using that as an example of why it would be totally incorrect for me to be like, no, Scientology helped me with that when I was a teenager. It's like, no, not being bullied every day helped you with that when you were a teenager.
Yeah. Some people have escaped something worse and then went into Scientology.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Anyway, interesting stuff to think about.
Yeah. I think it just really all goes to show too that it's, you know, the best thing we can do is just try to be. There's always going to be these different points of view. There's always going to be, because we all had these different experiences, is just remember that whatever happened to the kid, do you know?
Oh, Huck? He's out of the Sea Org.
Mhm.
I think he's still in Scientology, even if only for family connection reasons. But he is out of the Sea Org. He's from Canada.
Yeah.
And I always loved Huck. Huck knew I it's kind of like the way David Miscavige sort of protected me, kind of. I protected Huck.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I got this guy. He was my juniors. Hold on. He was my juniors, but he knew I had his back at all times.
Yeah.
He was a good kid. And he got married in the Sea Org, and he was in the Sea Org. I forget how many years he's been out of the Sea Org now, but it's been more than a few. And yeah, I don't know what he's doing in the real world, but I hope he officially leaves Scientology someday.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's got a hell of a story to tell. I know he does, because I was there for 4
Yeah.
years. I was there for 4 years of it.
Yeah. And how often that would happen too just astounds me even today, even with the living through so much of it and hearing so many stories, it still shocks me. I don't know why. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think, I hope it never stops shocking me. Because the day that we stop being shocked by this,
Yeah,
we've just completely normalized it to some degree. There's a lot. It wasn't until I got onto YouTube that I even started to process and go, oh my gosh, that was really bad. Because I had just been going and going and going and going, didn't really slow down to think about a lot of it. Some things, but on YouTube, talking about it a lot and hearing different people's stories helped me see things that I just didn't realize were not right, were human rights abuses. You think you thought of it all or processed it all. And I think it's impossible when you've spent a lifetime in a high control group like Scientology. How can you ever really process all of it? There's always things that end up coming up. And that's something that I think, like, just like with my grief, with losing Tony, I know that's always going to be a part of me. And my experience in Scientology is always going to be a part of me. And if nothing else, it makes for fun stories at parties. It gives me something to talk about because I don't do good with just the normal chit chat. You know, I'm like 3 minutes in and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to talk about something inappropriate.
Well, this has been a good chat.
Yes.
Let's do it more often. Now that you're
Absolutely.
missing from YouTube all the time.
That's right. Yeah. I need to just like take off the Band-Aid. I think what it is I've done the recap for such a long time that I want to be able to do that. I don't have the time to do that right now. But doesn't mean I couldn't go get on and do a video about something else, some other aspect of Scientology. I think I need to do that. I think I've been telling myself that if I can't, that's what my audience wants. And if I can't give that to them, then, you know, what am I going to be doing?
Right.
And my hope is that it's not just only because of that there's, you know, and there's other content that I did in interviews and stuff too. But that I think I just need to, you know, just jump on and do it. Just have a topic and do it. Cause
do something that doesn't require preparation.
Doesn't require a lot of that. Absolutely. Or, you know, touch on things like even to do it weekly, which I thought about, it's still, you know, I haven't had a full weekend off since I started. So when I do, it's like sometimes it's part of a day and then I got to clean my house. I don't work from home anymore. I got to do laundry. I got to get groceries. I got to pay bills, like all of the things that when you work from home, in my experience, it was easier to balance all of that and then pop in and, you know, do a video. But well, I'm seeing in the chat, okay, you guys better tune in then because I am going to do some videos. Y'all better be watching.
Yeah. And, you know, you get me started on this, I'll talk about it all night long. But like, there's so many of the YouTube channels that I watch, and I watch a lot of YouTube, you know, and the truth is most of the channels I just watch because I like the creator, not even because I am particularly interested in the subject matter.
Yeah, that's true. I have some like that as well. Like if I don't like or connect with the creator, even if the content's good, it's hard for me to watch.
Yeah.
But there's some where I could just listen to even when it's not. Yeah, no, I totally get that.
All right. This has been fun, Natalie. Let's do it again soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, wait. For anyone just tuning in, Natalie's channel, Life After a Cult. That's where you're going to find it. All right, everybody.
Right.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe